My son looked me dead in the eye and told me my access to the accounts had been revoked. He crumbled a check in my face in front of his board of directors and told me to stop bleeding his company dry. He thought he was teaching a senile old man a lesson about modern economics. He didn't know that the skyscraper he was standing in, the bespoke suit he was wearing, and the offshore accounts he was bragging about all belonged to me. By the time he realized his mistake, I was already a ghost, and his empire was turning to dust. Before we get into how I burned down my own kingdom to save it, tell me where you are listening from in the comments. Hit subscribe if you believe respect is earned, not inherited. The ink was barely dry on the check when a hand slammed down on the heavy oak conference table. The force of the impact rattled the carafe of water. I didn't flinch. I kept my hand steady, finishing the loop of my signature on the donation slip. $5,000 for the Ironworks Apprenticeship Program, a scholarship designed to help kids from the Rust Belt learn welding and fabrication. It was the same trade that had fed me and the same fund I established in memory of my late wife, Martha. You have got to be kidding me. The voice echoed off the glass walls of the boardroom. It was Julian, my son, the CEO of Thorn Heavy Industries. He snatched the check from under my pen, crushing the paper in his fist. Stop wasting my capital, Dad. The boardroom went silent. A dozen executives froze, eyes darting between us. A young intern pouring coffee near the door turned to stare, the pot trembling in her hand. The silence was heavy, thick with second-hand embarrassment, not for me, but for the man shouting at his 70-year-old father. I slowly capped my fountain pen and placed it in my breast pocket. I looked up at him. Julian looked immaculate in his $4,000 Savile Row suit. He looked like success. He looked like authority, but I knew better. I looked at his hands. They were soft. They were moisturized. They were hands that had never held a welding torch, never calibrated a hydraulic press, and never scrubbed industrial oil from their pores until the skin cracked. "That is not your capital, Julian," I said calmly. My voice was low, but in the quiet room, it carried like a hammer strike. "That is a donation. It is for your mother's memory." Julian laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. He tossed the crumpled check into the recycling bin next to the podium. "Mom is gone, Dad. She doesn't need money. You know who needs money? We do. We need liquidity for the Dubai venture. We need cash reserves to secure the new fleet of excavators. But instead of helping the company that sustains you, you're throwing $5,000 out the window to buy helmets for some delinquents who will probably quit within a week." I felt a coldness spread through my chest. It wasn't anger. It was something worse. It was clarity. I looked around the office. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Houston skyline. I remembered when this company was nothing but a single garage and a rusted pickup truck. I remembered buying the first plot of land with the insurance money from the accident that nearly took my left eye. I remembered pouring the concrete myself because I couldn't afford a crew. Julian saw a corporation. I saw my sweat and blood solidified into steel and glass. The sharp click of stilettos on the hardwood floor broke my concentration. I didn't have to look to know who it was. The scent of heavy perfume arrived before she did. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law. "What is going on here?" Vanessa asked, her voice dripping with artificial concern. She walked up to Julian and placed a hand on his shoulder, staking her claim. She looked at me with eyes that were as cold as polished marble. "Why is everyone staring? Is Elias having another episode?" Julian sighed, playing the role of the exhausted martyr perfectly. "He's writing checks again, Vanessa. $5,000 to that vocational charity." Vanessa gasped. She brought a hand to her chest, her emerald necklace catching the light. "I paid for that necklace. I paid for the designer dress she was wearing. I paid for the dermatologist who kept her face unnaturally taut." "Oh, Elias," she said, speaking to me as if I were a confused toddler or a pet that had just chewed the furniture. "We talked about this. You can't just give away money. You are on a fixed budget, don't you remember? I am not on a fixed budget, Vanessa, I said, standing up. My knees cracked, a reminder of 40 years of lifting steel beams. I am the chairman of the board. Vanessa exchanged a look with Julian. It was a look of pity mixed with contempt. It was the look you give an old machine that is too rusty to run but too heavy to haul to the scrapyard. See? Vanessa whispered loudly to Julian. I told you it's progressing. He thinks he's still running operations. It's the dementia talking. Julian, we have to make the call. We can't let him drain the accounts while he's living in a fantasy world. She turned back to me, smiling, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Elias, honey, listen to me. Julian runs the conglomerate now. You are retired. You are supposed to be resting. Maybe the estate is too much for you to manage. We were looking at a brochure for the Willow Creek Sanctuary yesterday. It's a lovely facility, assisted living. They have workshops. You could do puzzles. You wouldn't have to worry about bills or finances ever again. Willow Creek, the most expensive nursing home in the state and also the most isolating. It was a warehouse for the wealthy elderly, a place where families parked their unwanted relatives so they could spend the inheritance without guilt. I looked at the board members again. My old CFO, Mr. Sterling, was pretending to study a tablet, but I could see his face was flushed. He knew who built this empire, but he was terrified of Julian. Everyone was terrified of the volatile young CEO. I am not going to a home, I said, and I am not senile. I am donating money to honor the woman who built this with me. Julian stepped forward, invading my personal space. He used his height to intimidate me. He forgot that I was the one who taught him how to stand up straight. Enough, Julian hissed. I am done playing nice. You want to act like a child, I will treat you like one. He pulled a checkbook out of his jacket pocket. It was the corporate ledger. He ripped a check out, scribbled something on it furiously, and slammed it against my chest. I caught it before it fluttered to the floor. $200, Julian said. I looked at the check. Pay to the order of Elias Thorne. $200. That is your allowance, Julian declared, his voice rising again so the whole room could hear. Starting today, $200 a week. That is for gas for your old truck, for your coffees, for whatever. I am cutting off your access to the primary accounts. I am canceling your credit cards. I am taking over the mortgage payments on the estate so you don't accidentally list it for sale. Vanessa nodded approvingly, crossing her arms. It's for your own good, Elias, she said. We are protecting you from yourself. Julian pointed a finger at my face. And if you come in here and embarrass me again, if you try to undermine my authority in my building one more time, I will have security escort you out. Do you understand me? Go home, Dad. Go home and watch the news. Leave the heavy lifting to the men who actually generate the revenue. I stood there for a long moment. I looked at the check in my hand. $200. That was what my son thought I was worth. That was the value he placed on the man who had sacrificed his health, his hearing, and his youth to ensure he never had to work a dangerous shift in his life. I looked at Vanessa. She was checking her reflection in the glass wall, already bored with the drama now that she had won. I looked at Julian. He was breathing hard, his face flushed with the adrenaline of exerting power. He looked proud of himself. He thought he had just conquered a mountain. He didn't realize he had just stepped on a landmine. I folded the check neatly and placed it in my wallet. I did not scream. I did not beg. I did not argue. Very well, I said. My voice was steady. It was the voice of a foreman who had just identified a structural failure in a bridge. You have made your position clear. I turned around and walked toward the double glass doors. I could feel their eyes on my back. I could feel the relief washing over them. They thought they had won. They thought the old man was defeated. They thought I was going home to weep in my empty mansion. I pushed the doors open and stepped out into the humid Houston heat. The noise of the city filled my ears. I walked past the row of gleaming company vehicles. I walked past the monument sign that bore my name in 10-foot-tall bronze letters. I reached my old pickup truck parked in the far corner of the lot. It was a 20-year-old Chevy, dented and faded. Julian hated it. He said it was an eyesore. He begged me to drive one of the new luxury sedans. But I trusted this truck. It was real. It was honest. I climbed into the cab and shut the door, sealing out the noise. I sat there for a moment, listening to the engine of the world moving around me. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I didn't call a doctor. I didn't call a friend to complain. I dialed a number I hadn't used in 10 years. The line rang twice. Thorne and Associates. A sharp female voice answered. "Elena," I said. There was a pause on the other end. Then the tone changed completely. "Uncle Elias, is everything okay?" "No," I said, staring at the skyscraper through my windshield. I watched Julian and Vanessa laughing inside the glass tower I had built. They were clinking glasses, celebrating. "Everything is not okay," I continued, "but it is about to be corrected." "What do you need?" Elena asked. She was her father's daughter, sharp, ruthless. No wasted words. I took a deep breath. "Execute protocol ironclad," I said. Silence. The line went dead silent for 5 seconds. Protocol ironclad was the nuclear option. It was a set of legal documents we had drafted a decade ago. A contingency plan I hoped I would never have to use. It was designed for one purpose: total liquidation. "Are you sure?" Elena asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Uncle Elias, once we start this, there is no going back. It will wipe him out. It will dismantle everything he thinks he owns." I looked at the check for $200 in my wallet. I thought about the scholarship fund for the kids who had nothing. I thought about the disrespect. I thought about the nursing home brochure. "He told me to stop wasting his money," I said. "So I am going to make sure he never has to worry about money again, because he won't have any." "Do it, Elena. I am coming to the office. Have the paperwork ready for the bank." I hung up the phone and started the engine. The truck roared to life, a rough, guttural sound. I put it in gear and drove away. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I was done looking back. The war had begun, and my son had just fired the first shot at the only general who knew how to win it. I pulled my rusted Chevy truck into the driveway of the estate. The engine sputtered and died, leaving a ringing silence in the air. The house stood before me, a sprawling modern mansion with limestone walls and manicured gardens. It was a beautiful structure, the kind of home I had dreamed of owning when I was a boy sleeping in a drafty trailer in Oklahoma. But as I sat there gripping the steering wheel, I didn't feel pride. I felt like a stranger trespassing on foreign soil. This was the house I had bought. This was the house where I had nursed my wife through her final cancer treatments. This was the house where I had raised my son. Yet, according to the man who lived inside it, I was merely a guest who had overstayed his welcome. I stepped out of the truck and walked to the side entrance. I didn't want to go through the front door. I didn't want to see the portraits of Julian and Vanessa hanging in the foyer, posing like royalty in a castle they didn't build. I slipped into the mudroom and quietly made my way to the basement door. To them, the basement was just a place for storage, a dark hole where old holiday decorations and broken furniture went to die. To me, it was the command center. I walked down the wooden stairs, each step creaking under my weight. The air down here was cool and smelled of cedar and machine oil. I walked past the rows of shelving units to the back wall where an old heavy metal workbench stood. It looked immovable, bolted to the concrete floor. I reached behind the cabinet and pressed a small hidden button. There was a soft pneumatic hiss, and the cabinet swung outward on hidden hinges. Behind it was a steel door with a digital keypad. I punched in the code, 1978. The year I opened my first fabrication shop with nothing but a welding rig and a prayer. The lock disengaged with a heavy clank. I stepped inside and pulled the cabinet back into place, sealing myself in. This was my real office. It was soundproof, it was secure, and it held the truth that my son had conveniently forgotten. I sat down at the heavy steel desk and spun the dial on the wall safe. Inside lay the documents that defined my life. I pulled out the black leather binder titled Thorn Holdings Incorporated. I opened it to the first page. The bylaws were clear. Julian Thorn was listed as the Chief Executive Officer, a title that gave him the right to manage daily operations, hire staff, and sign checks up to a certain amount. But he was an employee. He was a salaried worker. I turned the page to the section on ownership. There was only one name listed under sole proprietor and chairman of the board with 100% voting rights: Elias Thorn. I ran my hand over the signature at the bottom. I had set it up this way to protect him. I wanted him to feel like a boss. I wanted him to have the confidence to lead. I stayed in the shadows, letting him take the credit for the acquisitions, for the rebrand, for the record profits. I played the part of the retired old man tinkering in his garden because I thought it would make him shine brighter. I thought I was being a good father. I realized now that I had only been an enabler. I had created a monster who thought he was a god simply because I never showed him the thunderbolts I held in my hands. I closed the binder. The truth was right here. I could fire him. I could dissolve the company. I could sell every asset underneath him. But I needed to know how deep the rot went. I needed to know if there was anything left of my son worth saving. I turned to the bank of monitors on the wall. 5 years ago, after a series of break-ins in the neighborhood, I had installed a military-grade security system. Cameras were in every hallway, the kitchen, the living room, and the study. Julian knew about the cameras on the exterior, but he had no idea that I had eyes inside the house. I had never used them to spy. I respected their privacy. But today, privacy was a luxury they could no longer afford. I flipped the master switch. The screens flickered to life in high-definition black and white. I saw the front door open upstairs. Julian and Vanessa walked in. They were arguing. I adjusted the volume on the control panel. Their voices came through crystal clear, amplified by the high-gain microphones. "I can't believe you let him talk to you like that," Vanessa was saying. She threw her Prada bag onto the sofa I had purchased for their wedding. "He is out of control, Julian. $5,000. Do you know what my father could do with $5,000 right now?" Julian paced the living room, loosening his silk tie. He looked agitated. He went to the bar and poured himself a stiff scotch. "He is my dad, Vanessa," Julian said, though his voice lacked conviction. "He built the place. I can't just ban him from the premises." "He didn't build it," Vanessa snapped. She walked over and snatched the glass from his hand, taking a drink herself. "You built it. You are the one who modernized the fleet. You are the one who secured the government contracts. All he did was weld pipes in a ditch. You made Thorn Industries what it is, and now he is sabotaging us." She was rewriting history in real time, and Julian was letting her. He sank into the armchair, rubbing his temples. "I cut his allowance," Julian said. "I locked the cards. He can't spend any more money." "That is not enough," Vanessa hissed. She sat on the arm of his chair, her voice dropping to a predatory whisper. "The creditors called my dad again this morning. Julian, they are threatening to hurt him. We need that $50,000 by Friday. And that is just the interest. We need the equity in this house." I sat up straighter in my chair. So that was it. It wasn't about the business. It wasn't about the Dubai venture. It was about her father, a man I had met twice. A slippery gambler who had never worked an honest day in his life. My son was draining my company to pay off a criminal debt for his father-in-law. "We can't sell the house yet," Julian said weakly. "The deed is in his name." "That is why we need the power of attorney," Vanessa said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a document. "I had my lawyer draft it this morning. It declares him mentally incompetent due to advanced dementia. Once he signs this, or once we get a doctor to sign off on it, we control everything. We can sell the house, put him in Willow Creek, and use the proceeds to settle my dad's debt and invest in the Dubai project. It is the only way. Julian, do you want to lose me? Do you want my family to be destroyed because you are too scared to handle one old man? Julian looked at the document. He stared at it for a long time. I watched his face on the monitor. I looked for hesitation. I looked for guilt. I looked for the little boy who used to cry when he scraped his knee, running to me for comfort. I held my breath. Just say no, son. Just tell her that you will not betray your own flesh and blood. Tell her that you will not sell the roof over your father's head to pay a gambling debt. Julian took the paper. He placed it on the coffee table and smoothed it out. Okay, he said softly. My heart stopped beating for a second. Okay, he repeated, his voice stronger this time. I will get him to sign it tomorrow. I will tell him it is an insurance update. He never reads the fine print anymore. We will sell the house. I watched as Vanessa leaned down and kissed him. It was the kiss of a parasite that had successfully latched onto a new host. Good boy, she said. Now, let's go out to dinner. I can't stand the smell of this place. It smells like old people. They stood up and walked out of the frame. I heard the front door close. The house was silent again. I sat in the dark basement for a long time. The image of my son agreeing to declare me insane burned into my retinas. He was going to trick me. He was going to steal my home. He was going to lock me away in a facility until I died, just so he could keep his wife happy and his ego intact. I didn't feel sadness anymore. That part of me had died the moment he said, okay. Now I only felt a cold, surgical precision. They wanted a war. They wanted to talk about incompetence. They wanted to talk about ownership. I reached for the secure phone on my desk. I dialed Elena's private number. She answered on the first ring. I have the files, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It was deeper. It was dangerous. Did you find what you were looking for? Elena asked. I found everything, I replied. They are planning to sell the house. They are planning to declare me incompetent tomorrow morning. I heard the sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. That is fraud, Elena said. That is conspiracy, Uncle Elias. We can have them arrested. No, I said. Arresting them is too easy. If I send him to jail, he will just blame the system. He will play the victim. I don't want him to be a victim. I want him to be nothing. I opened the black binder again. I looked at the bank account numbers listed there, the operating accounts, the personal accounts, the investment portfolios. I knew the passwords. I knew the security questions. I was the one who created them. Elena, listen to me carefully, I said. Meet me at the First Sovereign Bank at 9 sharp tomorrow morning. Bring the incorporation papers, bring the original deed, and bring a team of movers to the warehouse on the west side. What are we going to do? She asked. We are going to teach my son a lesson about economics, I said. He said he wants to control the finances. He said he wants to stop wasting money. So, I am going to grant his wish. I am going to make sure there is not a single penny left for him to waste. I hung up the phone. On the screen, the empty living room looked peaceful, but it was a lie. The ghosts were already here, and tomorrow they were going to start screaming. I turned off the monitors, plunging the room into darkness. I was ready. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of the kitchen window, casting long shadows across the granite island. The house was silent. It was a silence that felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. I walked into the kitchen, the cold tiles against my feet. There it was, right in the center of the table, sitting next to a half-empty cup of espresso Vanessa had left behind. The document. It was clipped neatly to a yellow sticky note with a smiley face drawn on it. The note read simply, "Good morning, Dad. Please sign where indicated. We will pick this up tonight. Love, V." Love. She wrote the word love on a document designed to strip me of my dignity. I picked up the papers. Durable power of attorney. declaration of incompetence, guardianship authorization. The legal terms were dry and clinical, but the intent was violent. This was a death warrant for my freedom. They wanted me to sign away my right to make decisions. They wanted the power to sell my home, access my accounts, and place me in a facility of their choosing. They had even filled in the date for me. All I had to do was add my signature like a sheep signing its own slaughter order. I looked at the pen they had left beside it. It was a cheap plastic promotional pen. They didn't even leave me a decent pen to sign away my life. I felt a laugh bubbling up in my chest, but it was devoid of humor. It was a dry, rattling sound. I did not sign the paper. Instead, I carefully folded the sticky note and placed it in my pocket. I would keep that smiley face. It would be a reminder of why I had to do what came next. I left the document exactly where it was. Let them come home to find it unsigned. Let them panic. By the time they returned, it wouldn't matter who signed what. The assets this paper was meant to steal would no longer exist. I walked out the front door and locked it behind me. My old Chevy truck was waiting. I climbed in, the familiar smell of gasoline and old leather grounding me. I drove toward downtown Houston. The city was waking up. People were rushing to work, oblivious to the fact that an empire was about to fall. I pulled up to the First Sovereign Bank Tower at 8:45. Elena was already there, standing near the entrance. She wore a sharp charcoal suit and held a thick leather briefcase. She looked like a warrior. She looked like justice. We didn't speak as we approached the glass doors. The security guard nodded at me. He knew me. He had been working there for 15 years. "Morning, Mr. Thorne," he said. "Morning, Carl," I replied. We walked straight to the executive offices on the second floor. The bank manager, Mr. Henderson, was just pouring his morning coffee. He was a nervous man, the kind who sweated when the stock market dipped half a percentage point. He looked up, surprised to see me. "Mr. Thorne," he stammered, putting his coffee down a little too hard. "And Miss Vance, I wasn't expecting you. Usually Julian handles the quarterly reviews." "Julian is not here," I said, my voice filling the small office. "And this is not a review." I sat down in the leather chair opposite his desk. Elena placed the briefcase on the desk and snapped the latches open. The sound was loud in the quiet room. "Mr. Henderson," Elena began, her tone professional and icy. "We are here to execute a full restructuring of Thorne Holdings. Specifically, we are here to invoke the dissolution clause of the current operating agreement." Henderson blinked, confused. He looked from Elena to me. "Dissolution? But Mr. Thorne, the company is posting record profits. Julian just called me yesterday about extending the line of credit for the Dubai expansion. He said you were retiring." I leaned forward. "Julian lied," I said. Henderson laughed nervously. He reached for his phone. "Maybe I should get Julian on the line. I'm sure we can clear up any confusion." "Do not touch that phone," I commanded. My voice wasn't loud, but it had the weight of 50 years of iron and steel behind it. Henderson froze, his hand hovering over the receiver. "If you call my son," Elena said, sliding a document across the desk, "you will be in violation of client confidentiality, and we will sue this bank for breach of fiduciary duty. Elias Thorne is the sole proprietor of Thorne Holdings. Julian Thorne is an employee with limited signatory power. Here is the incorporation charter. Here is the proof of ownership. And here is the clause that allows the chairman to revoke all lower-level access immediately." Henderson picked up the document. His eyes scanned the pages. I watched the color drain from his face. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his forehead. "I see," he whispered. "The bylaws are quite clear. I apologize, Mr. Thorne. I was under the impression that the succession had been finalized." "You were under the wrong impression," I said. "Now, Mr. Henderson, I want you to open the interface. We have work to do." He turned to his computer. His hands were shaking slightly as he typed in his security credentials. The screen flickered to life. "What are your instructions?" he asked. "First, the operating accounts," I said. Henderson brought up the main business account. The balance was substantial. It was the lifeblood of the operation. It paid for the steel, the payroll, the lights, and the water. "Transfer all liquid assets to the holding company account in the Cayman Islands," I said. "Leave nothing." Henderson hesitated. "Mr. Thorne, if I drain this account, the payroll checks will bounce on Friday. The vendors won't get paid. The equipment financing will default. This will effectively kill the business within 48 hours. "I know," I said. "Do it." The sound of his typing was loud. Click, click, enter. It sounded like gunshots in a canyon. "Transfer complete," Henderson said, his voice trembling. "Balance is 0. "Next," I said, "the personal accounts of Julian and Vanessa Thorne." Henderson looked at the screen. "These are joint accounts, but your name is listed as the primary custodian because you provided the initial deposit and never removed yourself," he noted. "Correct," I said. "Drain them. Every savings account, every checking account, the investment portfolio, the rainy day fund. Move it all." Click, click, enter. I watched the numbers on the screen disappear. The money for their country club membership, gone. The money for Vanessa's shopping sprees, gone. The money for Julian's ego, gone. "Now, the mortgage," I said. Henderson swallowed hard. "The mortgage on the estate?" "Yes," I said. "Who holds the note?" "This bank holds the note," Henderson said, "but Julian has been making the interest payments." "Sell the note," I said. "Sell the debt to the holding company I just specified." "But why?" Henderson asked. "You are buying your own debt." "No," I said. "I am buying the right to foreclose. If the bank holds the note, you have to follow a long legal process to evict them. If my private holding company owns the note, and if I choose to call in the full value of the loan immediately due to a violation of the morality clause in the contract, I can evict them much faster." Henderson looked at me with a mixture of fear and awe. He realized then that this wasn't a business transaction. This was an execution. "Done," he whispered. "The debt has been reassigned." I stood up. I felt lighter. The burden of supporting ungrateful children was gone. "One last thing," I said. I reached into my wallet and pulled out 2 crisp $100 bills. I placed them on Henderson's desk. "Deposit this into Julian's personal checking account," I said. "$200?" Henderson asked. "He told me $200 a week was enough for an old man to live on," I said. "Let's see how long he can live on it." I turned and walked out of the office, Elena right beside me. We took the elevator down to the lobby. The bank was busy now. People were depositing checks, asking for loans, hoping for a better future. I had just dismantled one. We stepped out onto the sidewalk. The sun was fully up now. The city was loud and alive. "It is done," Elena said. "By noon, the company will be getting calls from suppliers. By 2, the power company will flag the account for non-payment." "Good," I said. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my smartphone. It was the phone Julian paid for. It was the number he used to track me. I popped the back cover off and pulled out the SIM card. I snapped the small plastic chip in half. It made a sharp cracking sound. I dropped the pieces into a metal trash can on the corner. Then I dropped the phone in after it. "I am going to the airport," I told Elena. "You know what to do next." "I will handle the legal fallout here," she promised. "Go find some peace, Uncle Elias." I hailed a taxi. As I climbed into the back seat, I looked at my watch. It was 12:30, lunchtime. Miles away, in an upscale steakhouse, Julian was currently laughing with a group of potential investors from Dubai. He was probably ordering the most expensive bottle of wine on the menu. He was probably reaching for his black titanium credit card. I signaled the driver. "Take me to George Bush Intercontinental Airport," I said. As the taxi pulled away, merging into the traffic, I closed my eyes. I could imagine the scene perfectly. At the restaurant, the waiter was returning to the table. He was holding the black card with 2 fingers, a polite but apologetic expression on his face. "I am sorry, sir," the waiter would say. The card was declined. Julian would laugh. He would say it was a mistake. He would tell them to run it again. "Try it again," he would demand. "I am the CEO of Thorn Industries." The waiter would swipe it again. The machine would beep, a harsh electronic rejection. Declined. Julian would pull out another card. Declined. He would pull out his debit card. Declined. Panic would start to set in. He would open his banking app on his phone. He would wait for it to load, expecting to see millions. Instead, he would see the number I had left him, $200. And then, he would try to call me. He would dial Dad. And for the first time in his life, nobody would answer. The line would be dead, just like his future. At the exact moment I was watching the city skyline fade from the window of my taxi, my daughter-in-law Vanessa was holding court at the conservatory. It was her favorite spot for lunch, a place where a salad cost more than a welder made in an hour. She was surrounded by 3 of her friends, women who measured their self-worth by the size of the diamonds on their fingers. Vanessa was in high spirits. She had already ordered 2 bottles of vintage champagne. She was leaning forward, her voice loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. "We are finally taking full control," she announced, swirling the golden liquid in her glass. "Elias is stepping down. Well, we are making him step down. It's for the best. The Dubai expansion needs fresh eyes, and quite frankly, he was just holding Julian back. We are going to sell the old estate and move into a penthouse downtown. Something modern, something that doesn't smell like the 1980s. Her friends cooed with envy. They toasted to her new life. They ate caviar and laughed about their upcoming trips to Paris and Milan. Vanessa felt like a queen. She felt invincible. She didn't know that the crown she was wearing was made of paper, and I had just lit a match. The bill arrived on a silver tray. It was $840. Vanessa didn't even look at the total. She waved her hand dismissively and placed her black titanium card on the tray. It was the card attached to the primary family account, the account I had drained 45 minutes ago. The waiter, a young man named Stefano who knew Vanessa well, took the tray with a polite bow. Vanessa went back to talking about the interior decorator she planned to hire. 5 minutes later, Stefano returned. He was not smiling. He held the tray with both hands, looking uncomfortable. "Mrs. Thorne," he said softly, "I apologize. The card was declined." Vanessa stopped mid-sentence. She looked at the waiter as if he had just spoken a foreign language. "That is impossible," she snapped. "Run it again. It is probably a chip error." "I did run it again, ma'am," Stefano said, his voice dropping to a whisper to avoid embarrassing her. "I ran it 3 times. The system says insufficient funds." The table went silent. Her friends exchanged awkward glances. Vanessa let out a sharp, nervous laugh. "Insufficient funds? Do you know who I am? My husband owns the biggest manufacturing firm in the state. There must be a fraud hold on it because of the amount. Here, use this one." She pulled out her personal platinum card. This was the card linked to the account I funded for her shopping sprees. Stefano took it and walked away. Vanessa smiled tightly at her friends. "Banks are so sensitive these days," she said. "It's for security." Stefano came back faster this time. His face was pale. "I am so sorry, Mrs. Thorne. This one is declined too. The system says the account has been closed." "Closed?" Vanessa shrieked. She stood up, knocking her napkin onto the floor. "That old man, he must have messed something up. He probably forgot to pay the bill." She grabbed her phone and dialed Julian. It went straight to voicemail. She dialed again. Voicemail. She looked at her friends. The envy in their eyes had been replaced by pity. There is nothing a social climber hates more than pity. "I need one of you to cover this," Vanessa said, her voice trembling with rage and humiliation. "I will pay you back cash as soon as I get a hold of my husband." Her friends hesitated. The air in the restaurant felt very thin. Finally, one of them sighed and pulled out a card. "It's okay, Vanessa," the friend said, her tone condescending. "We've all had rough months." Vanessa sat down, her face burning red. She wasn't a queen anymore. She was a charity case. Across town, the chaos wasn't just social, it was industrial. Julian was standing in the middle of the executive floor. He was shaking hands with a client who had just agreed to purchase 20 massive cranes. It was a massive sale. "Congratulations," Julian said, flashing his winning smile. "Let me just get the paperwork approved by finance." Suddenly, the door to the accounting office burst open. Simon, the chief financial officer, ran out. He wasn't wearing his jacket. His tie was crooked. He looked like he had seen a ghost. "Julian," Simon yelled, forgetting all protocol. "We have a problem, a massive problem." Julian's smile faltered. He excused himself from the client and walked over to Simon, gripping his arm tightly. "Keep your voice down," Julian hissed. "I am closing a deal here." "You can't close the deal," Simon whispered, his eyes wide with panic. "The equipment financing just got pulled. The bank called. They said the collateral has been liquidated." "What?" Julian asked. "That's ridiculous. My father put up the collateral years ago." "It's gone, Julian, and that's not all. I tried to run payroll for tomorrow. The operating account is showing 0.00. Julian pushed Simon aside and stormed into the office. He went to the main computer terminal. He typed in his administrator password. "Access denied." He typed it again. "Access denied." He tried the backup password. "Access denied." A message popped up on the screen in red letters. "User privileges revoked by chairman. Contact system administrator." Julian stared at the screen. His hands started to shake. The phone on the desk rang. He picked it up. "Thorne Industries," he answered automatically. "Mr. Thorne, this is the power company," a recorded voice said. "Your automatic payment has failed. Please remit $22,000 immediately to avoid service interruption." He slammed the phone down. Another line blinked. It was the yard manager. "Boss, the transport truck is at the gate with the new steel shipment," the manager shouted over the static. "The driver says the wire transfer didn't go through. He's refusing to unload. He says he's turning the truck around." "Stop him," Julian screamed. "Tell him it's a glitch." "It's not a glitch, boss. The bank sent a foreclosure notice on the heavy equipment lot. They say we are in default." Julian dropped the receiver. The noise of the office, the phones ringing, the chatter of sales reps, the hum of the air conditioning. It all started to sound like a funeral dirge. He looked out the glass window. He saw his reflection. He looked small. He looked terrified. He pulled out his cell phone to call me. He needed his dad to fix it. Dad always fixed it. But as he looked at his phone, he saw a text message from Vanessa. "Card declined. Embarrassed in front of everyone. Where are you? Dad has gone crazy." Julian ran out of the office. He ignored the clients. He ignored Simon. He jumped into his company car and sped out of the lot, tires screeching. He had to get home. He had to make me sign the papers. He had to force me to undo this. He met Vanessa in the driveway. She was crying, her mascara running down her face. "He cut me off," she screamed. "He humiliated me. Where is he?" "Inside," Julian said, his jaw tight. "He is going to fix this right now, or I swear I will have him committed tonight." They rushed to the front door. Julian jammed his key into the lock. It turned. They burst into the foyer. "Dad!" Julian yelled. "Elias, get out here!" Silence. The house was completely silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. They ran to the living room. Empty. They ran to the kitchen. Vanessa stopped dead in her tracks. She pointed at the marble island. "There," she whispered. On the table sat the power of attorney document she had left that morning. It was untouched. Beside it, weighing it down, were two crisp $100 bills. Julian walked over slowly. He picked up the money. He looked at the sticky note Vanessa had left. The smiley face seemed to be mocking him now. There was no note from me, no explanation, no angry letter, just the silence and the $200. "He's gone," Julian whispered. "What do you mean he's gone?" Vanessa shrieked. "He can't be gone. Where is the money? Julian, where is our money?" Julian looked at the $200 in his hand. He remembered my words from yesterday. $200 a week. That is your allowance. "This is it," Julian said, his voice breaking. "This is all we have." He looked around the kitchen, the stainless steel appliances, the granite countertops, the crystal chandelier. Suddenly, the house didn't feel like his kingdom anymore. It felt like a tomb. And for the first time in his life, Julian Thorne realized that without Elias Thorne, he was just a man in a suit standing in a house he couldn't afford, holding money that wouldn't even buy him a tank of gas. The king had left the building, and he had taken the crown with him. The wind coming off the Detroit River was different from the air in Houston. In Houston, the air was thick, humid, and heavy with the scent of ozone and old money. Here in Detroit, the wind was sharp. It was cold. It tasted like iron and wet pavement. It was the kind of air that woke you up. It was the kind of air that made you feel alive. I stood in the center of the garage I had purchased 3 days ago. It was a brick building on the east side, nestled between a laundromat and a corner deli. The sign out front was faded, barely reading Miller & Sons Repair. The windows were grimy with decades of city soot. The concrete floor was stained with oil patches that looked like abstract maps of the world. To most people, this place was a dump. To Julian and Vanessa, it would have been a nightmare. But to me, it was a cathedral. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the smell of diesel solvent and vulcanized rubber. It was the perfume of my youth, before Thorne Heavy Industries became a boardroom for people who wore shoes that cost more than my first welder. I was an engineer. I didn't just sell machines. I built them. I understood them. I knew that an engine wasn't just a machine. It was a heart. It had a rhythm. It had a voice. If you treated it with respect, it would run forever. If you neglected it, it would die. It was a simple truth that applied to machines, and, as I had recently learned, to children. I walked over to the workbench in the center bay. On it sat a vintage 1970s diesel generator. It belonged to Mrs. Kowalski, the lady who ran the bakery down the street. She had told me it was sputtering, and that 3 other mechanics had told her to scrap it. I ran my hand along the cold steel of the casing. I didn't need a computer diagnostic tool. I didn't need a tablet. I grabbed a stethoscope from my toolbox and placed it against the engine block. I closed my eyes and listened. There it was, a faint rhythmic tapping in the fuel injector, a clogged nozzle. It was a $15 part and an hour of labor. The other mechanics had seen an old woman and smelled a scam. I saw a machine that still had hours left in it. I picked up a wrench. The metal felt heavy and honest in my hand. For the last 10 years, my hands had only held pens, wine glasses, and steering wheels of cars I didn't work on. My hands had become soft. They had become the hands of a chairman. Now, as I loosened the bolt on the casing, I felt the vibration travel up my arm. I felt the resistance of the metal. I felt the oil coating my fingers. It was black and viscous. It was dirty, and it was beautiful. I worked for 4 hours straight. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look at stock prices. I didn't worry about the Dubai venture. I just worked. I replaced the nozzle. I adjusted the timing. I cleaned the filters. When I pulled the cord, the generator roared to life. It didn't sputter, it hummed. It was a steady, powerful sound that resonated in my chest. I wiped my hands on a rag, leaving streaks of grease on my gray coveralls. I looked in the reflection of the shop window. I didn't see Elias Thorne, the wealthy philanthropist. I saw Elias, the mechanic. I saw the man I was before the money complicated everything. I smiled. It was the first real smile I had worn in years. By the time I rolled the bay door up to let the afternoon light in, a small crowd had gathered. In this neighborhood, news traveled faster than fiber optic cables. The word was out that the old guy in the news shop actually knew what he was doing. I saw 3 teenagers standing near the entrance, leaning on their bicycles. They were watching me. They wore hoodies and looked at me with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. I knew that look. I had worn that look 50 years ago. They were wondering who this old man was and what he wanted in their territory. One of them, a tall kid with dreadlocks, stepped forward. He pointed at the generator. "You fixed Mrs. Kowalski's rig," he stated. It wasn't a question. "I did," I replied, wiping a wrench with a clean rag. "They said the block was cracked," the kid said. "They said she needed a new one." "They were wrong," I said. "It just needed a little adjustment. Engines don't lie. People do." The kid looked at the machine, then back at me. He looked at my hands covered in grease. He didn't see a checkbook. He didn't see a CEO. He saw skill. In this world, skill was currency. Skill was survival. "You know how to work on dirt bikes?" the kid asked. "I know how to work on anything that burns gas and has pistons," I said. He hesitated, then gestured to a beat-up Honda dirt bike leaning against the wall across the street. "My bike won't idle," he said quietly. "It cuts out at stop signs." "Bring it in," I said. "I can't pay you much," he said, his defenses going up. "I didn't ask for money," I said. "Bring it in. If you help me fix it, the labor is free. You just pay for parts." The kid's eyes widened. He signaled to his friends, and they ran to the bike. For the rest of the afternoon, the shop wasn't silent. It was filled with the sounds of tools dropping, compressed air hissing, and the questions of young men who were hungry for knowledge. I showed them how to clean a carburetor. I showed them how to gap a spark plug. I didn't treat them like potential criminals. I treated them like apprentices. For the first time in decades, I wasn't being asked for a handout. I was being asked for guidance. Julian had never asked me how an engine worked. He only asked how much profit it generated. These kids with dirt under their fingernails and holes in their sneakers had more respect for the craft than my own son ever did. I realized then that I wasn't hiding in Detroit. I was building something. I was building a legacy that had nothing to do with bank accounts. The sun was beginning to set, painting the Detroit skyline in hues of purple and orange, when a police cruiser pulled up to the curb. The blue and red lights weren't flashing, but the presence of the car was enough to make the neighborhood tense up. The kids froze. The tall kid, whose name I learned was Marcus, took a step back, his eyes darting to the exit. "It's okay," I told them. "Calm. Keep cleaning those valves." 2 officers stepped out of the car. One was a young rookie looking nervous. The other was a veteran, a sergeant with a thick mustache and tired eyes. They walked into the shop, their hands resting near their belts. "Can I help you, officers?" I asked. I didn't put down my wrench. "Are you Elias Thorne?" the sergeant asked. He held a tablet in his hand. "I am," I said. The sergeant looked at the tablet, then at me. He looked at the grease on my face, the coveralls, the old shop. He looked confused. "We received a missing persons report from Houston," the sergeant said. "A Mr. Julian Thorne claims his father, Elias Thorne, is suffering from severe dementia and has wandered off with a large sum of money. He says the subject is confused and dangerous to himself." I laughed. It was a deep, hearty laugh that echoed off the brick walls. Marcus and his friends looked at me, surprised. "I assure you, Sergeant, I am not confused," I said, "and I am certainly not dangerous to myself, though I might be dangerous to a fuel line if I don't get this seal seated correctly." The sergeant stepped closer. "Sir, I need to verify your identity and your mental state. Do you know what year it is?" "It is 2026, I said. "I am in Detroit, Michigan. I purchased this property 3 days ago with a cashier's check, which is on file with the county clerk. I am perfectly lucid." The sergeant looked at the rookie. "He seems fine to me," the rookie muttered. I wiped my hands and pulled my wallet out of my back pocket. I handed the sergeant my driver's license. "My son is upset because I cut him off," I explained simply. "He is trying to use the police to drag me back so he can control my assets. It is a civil dispute, officer, not a police matter." The sergeant checked the license. He looked at the shop again. He seemed to appreciate the smell of honest work. He handed the license back to me. "He's been calling the precinct every hour," the sergeant said. "He says you were abducted. He says you aren't capable of living on your own." I gestured to the generator on the bench. I gestured to the dirt bike. I gestured to the boys cleaning parts. "Does this look like the work of a man who cannot take care of himself?" I asked. The sergeant smiled. It was a small, knowing smile. "No, sir, it does not," he said. He tapped his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4. We have located the subject. Subject is safe, secure, and seemingly in better health than the reporting party. Cancel the bolo." He turned back to me. "I have to call him and tell him we found you," the sergeant said. "Do you have a message for your son?" I thought about Julian. I thought about him sitting in that dark mansion, panicking, not because he missed me, but because he missed my wallet. I thought about the way he had looked at me in the boardroom, like I was a piece of trash to be discarded. "Yes," I said, "I have a message." I looked the sergeant dead in the eye. "Tell him I am not missing," I said. "Tell him I have just retired. Tell him I retired from the job of being the father to a fool. And tell him that if he wants to find me, he better not come looking in a suit, because in this shop, we judge a man by what he can do, not by what he can steal." The sergeant nodded. He touched the brim of his cap. "I will let him know, Mr. Thorne. Good luck with the fuel line." The police got back in their car and drove away. The tension in the shop evaporated. Marcus looked at me with wide eyes. "You really a millionaire?" Marcus asked. I picked up the wrench and turned back to the Honda. "Marcus," I said, tightening the bolt, "I am a mechanic. Now, hand me that socket wrench. We have work to do." 7 days. That is exactly how long it took for the Kingdom of Thorne Heavy Industries to turn into a graveyard. I stayed in Detroit, fixing small engines and teaching kids how to weld, but I kept my ear to the ground. Elena sent me daily updates. She didn't need to add commentary. The facts spoke for themselves. The collapse of a man who builds his house on sand is always loud, and it is always messy. By Wednesday of the first week, the inventory was gone. I had executed the clause in the financing agreement that allowed the holding company to reclaim assets in the event of a default. And since I had drained the operating account on Monday, the default was immediate. It happened at 10 in the morning. Julian was in his glass office trying to negotiate a loan with a predatory lender who charged 40% interest. He was desperate. He was sweating through his shirt. Outside in the lot, 3 massive flatbed trucks pulled up. They didn't have the Thorne logo on them. They were unmarked. They were the Grim Reapers of the construction business. The drivers didn't come inside to ask for keys. They had master overrides. They simply lowered the ramps and started loading the machines. The excavators went first, then the bulldozers, then the high-end cranes that were the crown jewels of the fleet. Julian ran out of his office. He dropped his phone. He ran onto the gravel, waving his arms like a man trying to stop a tsunami with a paper shield. "Stop!" he screamed. "What are you doing? You can't take these. I have contracts." The lead driver, a man named Miller, who I had hired specifically because he didn't care about men in suits, just looked at his clipboard. "Order comes from the lien holder," Miller said, not even looking up. "Default on payment. Repossession is authorized immediately." "There must be a mistake," Julian pleaded. He grabbed Miller's arm. "Do you know who I am? I am Julian Thorne. This is my company." Miller pulled his arm away. He looked Julian up and down. "You are the guy standing in the way of my truck," Miller said. "Move, or I call the cops." Julian froze. The cops. He had already called them on me. He knew they wouldn't help him now. He looked around. His employees were standing in the windows, watching. They weren't working. They were packing their boxes. They knew a sinking ship when they saw one. One by one, the machines were loaded. The lot, which used to sparkle with millions of dollars of yellow steel, became a vast, empty expanse of gray gravel. It looked naked. It looked like an abandoned quarry. Julian stood there until the last truck drove away. The dust settled on his Italian shoes. He walked back inside, but the office was silent. The receptionist, a nice girl named Sarah, whom I had hired straight out of college, was putting her picture frame in a cardboard box. "Where are you going?" Julian asked, his voice hollow. "My paycheck bounced," Sarah said. She didn't look at him. She looked at the door. "I have rent to pay, Julian. I can't work for free." "Everyone is leaving," Julian said. Sarah looked at him then. There was no pity in her eyes, only exhaustion. "Elias never missed a payroll," she said quietly. "In 30 years, your dad never missed a single day. You missed it in 1 week." She walked out. The sales team followed. The technicians in the back, the ones who hadn't already quit, packed their tool chests and rolled them out to their trucks. Within an hour, Julian was the only person left in the building. He was the CEO of an empty room. But the silence at the office was a symphony compared to the noise waiting for him at home. Julian drove his personal car, the one vehicle I had not repossessed yet, back to the estate. He was terrified. He had to tell Vanessa that the business was effectively dead. He had to tell her that the cash flow was not just paused, it was terminated. When he walked into the house, he expected tears. He expected panic. What he found was an interrogation. Vanessa was sitting in the living room. Sitting across from her were 2 men I recognized from the security feeds. They weren't bankers. They weren't lawyers. They were associates of her father's bookie. They wore leather jackets that were too tight, and they didn't bother to stand up when Julian entered. "Who are they?" Julian asked, stopping at the archway. "They are here for the money, Julian," Vanessa said. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a razor. "My dad is in the hospital. He had an accident. A very bad accident involving a flight of stairs he didn't actually fall down." One of the men stood up. He was big. He smiled, but it was a smile that promised violence. "Mr. Thorne," the man said, "your father-in-law owes our employer $50,000 plus interest. We were told you were good for it. We were told you ran the town." "I don't have it," Julian said. He held up his hands. "Look, I am having a liquidity issue right now. My father locked the accounts. Give me a week." The man stopped smiling. "We don't have a week," the man said, "and neither does your father-in-law. You have 24 hours, or the next accident will be fatal." The men walked past Julian, bumping his shoulder hard enough to make him stumble. They left the house, slamming the front door. Julian looked at Vanessa. She wasn't crying for her father. She was glaring at her husband. "You are useless," she spat. Julian blinked. The insults were coming faster now. "I am useless," he repeated. "I just lost my business, Vanessa. I just watched my employees walk out. I am trying to keep a roof over our heads." "You are failing," she screamed. She stood up and threw a vase across the room. It shattered against the fireplace. "I married a provider. I married a man with a future. Look at you. You are trembling. You are pathetic. My dad is going to die because you can't handle one senile old man." "It isn't just my dad," Julian shouted back, his own anger finally rising. "It is the law. The documents are ironclad. He owns everything." "Then steal it," Vanessa yelled. "Sell the jewelry. Sell the art. Sell this furniture. I don't care. Get me $50,000 by tomorrow morning." She stormed upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. Julian stood alone in the living room, surrounded by shattered porcelain. He felt like he was suffocating. He needed air. He needed a drink. But the liquor cabinet was locked, and he had lost the key. He went into the home office. He needed to find something to sell. He started pulling drawers open, looking for titles, deeds, anything that wasn't in my name. He found nothing. I had been thorough. But in the bottom drawer of the desk, buried under a stack of old magazines, he found a file folder. It was labeled Household Expenses. It was in Vanessa's handwriting. Julian opened it. He was looking for receipts to see if they could return anything. What he found made his blood run cold. It was a bank statement from 6 months ago. It was from a secret account he didn't know existed. The account was in Vanessa's maiden name. He scanned the deposit column. Every month there was a transfer, $5,000, $10,000, and then, 3 months ago, a massive transfer, $500,000. The label on the transfer read, Consulting Fee, Dubai Project. Julian stared at the paper. There was no Dubai project. There never was. The Dubai expansion was just a concept. It was a pitch deck. He flipped the page. The money had been transferred out the next day, sent to an account in Las Vegas. The recipient was Robert Sterling, Vanessa's father. Julian dropped the paper. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely breathe. He had been killing himself to fund the Dubai expansion. He had been fighting with me about capital for the Dubai expansion. He had accused me of holding the company back from the Dubai expansion, and Vanessa had stolen the seed money. She had taken $500,000 of company funds, disguised it as a consulting fee, and funneled it to her father to pay off his gambling debts. And she had done it while smiling at Julian, while telling him he was a genius, while encouraging him to cut me off to save money. She didn't love him. She wasn't even on his side. She was laundering money through his ego. Julian stood up. The rage that filled him was different from the anger he felt toward me. The anger toward me was based on entitlement. This rage was based on betrayal. He marched up the stairs. He kicked the bedroom door open. Vanessa was packing a suitcase. She looked up, startled. "What is wrong with you?" she asked. Julian threw the bank statement at her. The papers fluttered down like dead leaves. "You stole it," he said. His voice was dangerously quiet. "You stole $500,000. Vanessa looked at the papers. She didn't deny it. She didn't look ashamed. She just shrugged. "My parents needed it," she said. "They were going to lose their house." "I am losing my business," Julian screamed. "I am losing my mind. And you gave $500,000 to a gambler?" "He is family," Vanessa yelled back, "something you wouldn't understand. You treat your father like an employee. I treat my father like a priority." "You are a thief," Julian said. "And you are broke," Vanessa retorted. "So I guess we are even. Now get out of my way. I am going to stay at the Ritz-Carlton until you fix this mess." She tried to push past him. Julian grabbed her arm. "You are not going anywhere," he said. "You are going to give that money back." "It is gone, Julian." She laughed in his face. "It was gone the minute it hit Vegas. Do you think I have 500 grand sitting in a shoebox? Wake up." She wrenched her arm free and walked down the stairs. Julian watched her go. He heard the front door open and close. He heard the engine of her car start. He sank down onto the floor of the hallway. He put his head in his hands. He had lost his father. He had lost his company. He had lost his wife. And he had just discovered that the woman he sacrificed everything for had been robbing him blind the entire time. The doorbell rang. Julian didn't move. He thought it might be the loan sharks coming back to finish the job. Part of him hoped it was. Part of him hoped they would just end it. The bell rang again. Long, insistent. Julian dragged himself up. He walked down the stairs like an old man. He opened the door. It wasn't a loan shark. It was a small man in a cheap suit holding a large manila envelope. "Julian Thorne?" the man asked. "Yes," Julian whispered. "You have been served," the man said. He thrust the envelope into Julian's chest. Julian took it. He watched the man walk away. He opened the envelope right there in the doorway. It was a subpoena, but it wasn't from a supplier. It wasn't from a bank. It was from the Department of Justice. Tax fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. The investigation into the missing $500,000 had begun. The transaction Vanessa had made was flagged, but her name wasn't on the company documents. Only one name was listed as the CEO who authorized the transfer: Julian Thorne. He looked at the paper. He looked at the empty driveway. He realized then that the bottom wasn't when the machines were towed. The bottom wasn't when his wife left. The bottom was right here. He was going to prison for a crime his wife committed using money his father had earned. He fell to his knees on the welcome mat, and for the first time in 20 years, he cried out for the only person who could possibly save him. "Dad!" But the wind carried his voice away, and I was 200 miles away, listening to the hum of an engine that actually worked. The neon sign outside the strip mall law office flickered with a dying buzz. It was a far cry from the marble lobbies of the corporate firms Julian was used to. But the corporate firms had stopped returning his calls the moment his credit rating plunged below 500. Now he was sitting across from a man named Saul Finch. Finch wore a suit that was 2 sizes too big and smelled of stale cigarette smoke and desperation. To Julian, however, this man looked like a savior. Finch flipped through the file Julian had scraped together. It contained the original incorporation papers, a few old emails, and a lot of printed spreadsheets that Julian barely understood. Finch licked his thumb as he turned the page, a habit that made Julian wince. "This is good," Finch said, his voice gravelly. "This is very good. We can argue implied partnership. You have been the face of the company for 5 years. You signed the checks. You hired the staff. In the eyes of the law, that creates an expectation of equity. This old man can't just pull the rug out because he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. We will file for an emergency injunction. We will claim elder abuse. We will say he is being manipulated by his lawyer and is not of sound mind. We will freeze the assets he stole and force him to the negotiating table." Julian felt a surge of hope. It was a toxic, dangerous hope, but it was the only thing he had left. He leaned forward, his eyes feverish. "Can we get the accounts unlocked?" Julian asked. "I need access to the capital. I have debts, Mr. Finch. Urgent debts." Finch smiled, revealing teeth that had seen too much coffee. "Once the judge grants the temporary restraining order on your father's actions, we can petition for a stipend to maintain the status quo. We will get you your money, Mr. Thorne, but I need a retainer, $5,000 cash." Julian swallowed hard. He had sold his Rolex watch at a pawn shop an hour ago for exactly $5,000. It was the last thing of value he owned. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the envelope. He placed it on the scratched laminate desk. "Get my company back," Julian said. 2 days later, I received the summons in Detroit. Elena handed it to me with a look of disgust. "He is suing you," she said. "He is actually suing you for theft of his company." I read the document. It was filled with lies. It claimed I was senile. It claimed I had abandoned my duties. It claimed Julian was the true architect of the Thorne Empire. I put the paper down on my workbench next to a disassembled carburetor. "Book the flight," I said. "If he wants a day in court, I will give him a lifetime of reality." The courtroom in Houston was cold and sterile. It smelled of floor wax and misery. Julian sat at the plaintiff's table with Finch. My son looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled. He had lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. When I walked in, he didn't look at me. He stared at the table, his leg bouncing nervously. I sat with Elena. We didn't have stacks of boxes. We had a single slim laptop and a projector. The judge, the Honorable Marcus Holloway, was a man known for his impatience with frivolous lawsuits. He peered over his glasses at Julian. "Mr. Finch, you may proceed with your opening statement," Judge Holloway said. Finch stood up, buttoning his ill-fitting jacket. He launched into a theatrical speech about how Julian had poured his blood, sweat, and tears into Thorne Heavy Industries. He painted a picture of a devoted son who had built a brand, only to have a jealous, mentally declining father destroy it out of spite. My client is the victim of a financial kidnapping, Finch declared, pointing a shaking finger at me. He made that company what it is. He generated the profits. He secured the deals. And now he is destitute because of the vindictiveness of a man who should be in a care facility, not managing a multi-million-dollar portfolio. Julian nodded along, believing every word. He had told himself this lie so many times that it had become his truth. When it was our turn, Elena stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't point fingers. She simply connected her laptop to the courtroom screen. "Your Honor," Elena said, "we do not dispute that Julian Thorne acted as the CEO. We do not dispute that he signed checks. What we dispute is the fantasy that he was ever a successful businessman." She clicked a button. A spreadsheet appeared on the screen. It was a profit and loss statement for the last 5 years. The lines were red, deep, dark red. "Mr. Thorne," Elena addressed Julian, who was now forced to look at the screen. "Can you tell the court what this number represents in the fiscal year of 2024? Julian squinted. "That is the gross revenue," he said confidently. $20 million. "No," Elena corrected him. "That is the operating loss. That is negative $20 million. Julian laughed nervously. "That is impossible. We expanded that year. We renovated the fleet. We bought the new cranes. You can't do that with a loss." Elena clicked to the next slide. It showed a series of wire transfers. They were all dated the last day of every month. They were all from my personal private holdings. "You could do it because your father paid for it," Elena said. Every single month for 5 years, Elias Thorne transferred an average of $300,000 into the business account to cover the deficit. He covered your bad deals. He covered the unsold inventory. He covered the payroll you couldn't meet. A murmur went through the courtroom. Finch looked at the screen, then at Julian. He started to sweat. Julian shook his head. "No, that is investment capital. That is how business works. That is how startups work." "Thorne Industries is not a startup," Elena cut in sharp. "It is a 40-year-old company, or it was until you took over. And while you were losing money hand over fist, let's look at what you were spending." She clicked again. A list of credit card charges appeared. It scrolled down the screen like the credits of a movie that was way too long. First-class tickets to Dubai, a 60-foot yacht rental in the Mediterranean, custom-tailored suits, dinners costing $4,000, diamond jewelry. "Mr. Thorne," Elena asked, "are these business expenses?" "Networking," Julian stammered. "I have to look the part. I have to court investors." "You spent $3 million on lifestyle expenses in 2 years," Elena said, "while the company lost $4 million. Your father didn't just subsidize the business. He subsidized your delusion. He paid for your suit so you could play boss. He paid for your dinner so you could feel important. He paid for everything because he loved you and hoped you would eventually learn. But you never learned. You just spent more." I watched Julian. The color was draining from his face. He looked at the numbers. He looked at the dates. He saw the truth in black and white. He had never made a profit, not once. Every success he thought he had achieved was a gift I had silently placed in his pocket. Elena turned to the judge. "Your Honor, the plaintiff claims he has an implied partnership based on his contribution to the company's value. The evidence shows his contribution was negative. He didn't build equity, he built debt. The only reason Thorne Industries existed this long was because Elias Thorne refused to let his son fail publicly. But when Julian Thorne tried to declare his father incompetent to seize the remaining assets for his own personal debts, Elias Thorne decided to stop the bleeding." She paused, letting the silence hang in the air. "We are not just asking for a dismissal," Elena continued. "We are submitting these records to the court as evidence of corporate malfeasance. Julian Thorne signed tax returns claiming these lifestyle expenses were business deductions. That is tax fraud, Your Honor, and since he signed them as CEO, he alone is liable." Julian stood up. His legs were shaking so hard he had to grip the table. "Dad," he whispered. It was a small, broken sound. "Dad, stop this, please." I looked at him. I didn't see the arrogant man who threw a check in my face. I saw a frightened boy who had broken a window and was waiting for the punishment. But this window couldn't be fixed. I remained seated. I remained silent. Judge Holloway looked at the evidence. He looked at Julian with a mixture of pity and contempt. He banged his gavel. It sounded like a gunshot. "Case dismissed with prejudice," the judge ruled. "Mr. Finch, you should be ashamed of bringing this before my court. And Mr. Thorne, I suggest you do not leave the building." "Why?" Julian asked, his voice trembling. "Because," the judge said, pointing to the back of the room, "the gentleman in the back row would like a word with you." Julian turned around. Standing by the double doors were two men in dark suits. They weren't smiling. They wore badges on their belts. IRS, Criminal Investigation Division. Julian looked back at me. His eyes were wide, pleading. He wanted me to write a check. He wanted me to make the bad men go away. He wanted me to be the father who fixed everything. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I looked at Elena and nodded. We walked toward the exit. As I passed Julian, I stopped for a brief second. He reached out to grab my sleeve. "Dad," he choked out, "they are going to arrest me." I looked at his hand. It was trembling. "You wanted to be the man in charge, Julian," I said softly. "This is what being in charge looks like. You take the credit. You take the blame." I pulled my arm away and walked out of the courtroom. The doors swung shut behind me, but they couldn't block out the sound of the agents reading my son his rights. I walked down the long marble hallway of the courthouse. My footsteps echoed on the stone. I was walking away from the wreckage of my family, but for the first time in years, I was walking toward a future that was honest. I had lost a son, but I had regained my integrity. And as I stepped out into the blinding Houston sun, I knew that the hardest part was over. The lesson had been taught. Now I had to wait and see if he would survive the grade. The sound of a zipper closing is usually a harmless noise. It is the sound of a vacation starting or a gym bag being packed. But in the hollow, echoing hallway of the Thorne estate, the sound of the zipper on Vanessa's Louis Vuitton suitcase sounded like a body bag being sealed. Julian stood in the doorway of the master bedroom. He was still wearing the same suit he had worn to court. It was wrinkled now. The tie was loose. He looked like a man who had been running for days, even though he hadn't moved from this spot for an hour. He watched his wife. She moved with a terrifying efficiency. She wasn't crying. She wasn't hesitant. She was raiding the closet. She grabbed the Hermes Birkin bags I had paid for. She grabbed the diamond tennis bracelet Julian had bought her for her 30th birthday. She swept the jewelry box clean, dumping necklaces and earrings into her purse like she was looting a store during a riot. "You can't just leave," Julian said. His voice was raspy. He sounded like a ghost haunting his own life. Vanessa didn't stop packing. She picked up a silk scarf and inspected it for stains before tossing it into the bag. "I can leave," she said flatly. "In fact, I should have left years ago. I should have left when you refused to buy the penthouse in Dubai. I should have known then that you were small time." "Small time," Julian repeated. He stepped into the room. "Vanessa, I gave you everything. I gave your father $500,000. I went to court for you. I am facing prison time for you." Vanessa stopped. She turned around slowly. Her face was perfectly made up, her lipstick a sharp, aggressive shade of red. She looked at Julian with a profound sense of boredom. "You didn't do those things for me, Julian," she said. "You did them for yourself. You did them because you wanted to be the big man. You wanted to be the savior. You loved the way it felt when my father begged you for money. It made you feel powerful. It made you feel like you were better than Elias." "Don't say his name," Julian snapped. "Why not?" Vanessa laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "He is the only reason we are standing here. He is the only reason you have this house. He is the only reason you have a suit on your back." She zipped up the second suitcase and set it on the floor. She walked over to the vanity mirror and checked her reflection. She adjusted her hair, preparing to face the world as a single, victimized woman. "I married a thorn," she said to her reflection. "I married a dynasty. I thought I was marrying the future King of Houston. I didn't sign up to be the wife of a clerk who played dress-up in his daddy's office." Julian felt a sharp pain in his chest. It was the physical sensation of his heart breaking, not out of love, but out of the realization of how blind he had been. "You said you loved me," he whispered. "I love the potential," Vanessa corrected him. She turned to face him one last time. "I loved the access. I loved the black card. But let's be honest, Julian. You were never interesting. You were never smart. You were just the son of a rich man. And now that the rich man has taken his ball and gone home, you are just a man with a lot of debt and no personality." She grabbed the handles of her suitcases. She walked toward the door. Julian blocked her path. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To the Ritz-Carlton," she said, "and then to my lawyer. I am filing for divorce in the morning. I am citing financial instability and emotional distress." "You are going to take half of nothing," Julian said bitterly. "No," Vanessa smiled. "I am going to take half of whatever you have left hidden. And don't worry about my dad's debt. I am sure he will find another sucker to pay it off. Or maybe he will just sell the story of how the Thorne family collapsed to the tabloids. That should be worth a few grand." She pushed past him. Julian didn't have the strength to stop her. He was weak. He was starving. He watched her walk down the grand staircase. Her heels clicked on the marble, a rhythm of departure. The front door opened. The heavy oak door that I had installed to keep my family safe now opened to let the last traitor escape. Vanessa paused at the threshold. She didn't look back. She simply walked out into the evening air. The door slammed shut. The sound echoed through the three-story house, bouncing off the walls, the chandeliers, and the empty spaces where art used to hang. Julian stood at the top of the stairs for a long time. He listened to the sound of her engine starting. He listened to the tires crunching on the gravel. He listened until the silence returned. Then the house went dark. It happened all at once. The chandelier above him flickered and died. The sconces in the hallway went black. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen stopped. The security system panel by the door let out a dying beep and went silent. The power company had finally cut the line. Julian stood in the pitch-black darkness. He couldn't see his hand in front of his face. He felt the temperature in the house begin to drop. Without the heating system, the massive stone structure was just a cold, damp cave. He felt his way along the wall, his fingers trailing over the expensive wallpaper. He walked down the stairs, counting the steps like a child afraid of the dark. 1, 2, 3. He reached the bottom and stumbled into the foyer. He needed a drink. He needed to numb the voice in his head that sounded suspiciously like mine. He fumbled his way to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator door, hoping for the light to come on, forgetting that the power was out. It remained dark. The air inside was warm and smelled of spoiled milk. There was no food. Vanessa had thrown out the leftovers before she left, claiming they smelled. Julian grabbed a bottle of warm water from the pantry and sat down on the cold kitchen floor. He leaned his back against the cabinets. The silence was deafening. There were no servants, no wife, no friends, no employees. For the first time in his 38 years, Julian Thorne was completely and utterly alone. He closed his eyes, and in the darkness, the memories he had suppressed for years began to surface. He remembered a fishing trip we took when he was 10. It was on a small boat, nothing fancy. We had caught nothing all day. He was complaining. He wanted to go home. He wanted to play video games. I remembered what I told him that day. I told him that patience was the only currency that mattered. I told him that a man who cannot sit with himself in silence is a man who cannot be trusted with anything else. He remembered the day he graduated college. I gave him a watch. It wasn't a Rolex. It was a sturdy, reliable field watch. I told him that time was the only thing he couldn't buy. I told him to use it wisely. He had laughed and thrown the watch in a drawer, buying himself a gold one the next week. He remembered the day he introduced me to Vanessa. I had pulled him aside. I had warned him. "She looks at your wallet, son, not your eyes," I had said. He had called me a bitter old man. He had told me I didn't understand modern love. He had told me I was jealous of his happiness. Sitting on the floor of the dark kitchen, Julian laughed. It was a broken, sobbing sound. "You were right," he whispered to the empty room. "You were right about everything." He pulled his knees to his chest and wept. He cried for the money he lost. He cried for the wife who never loved him. But mostly, he cried for the father he had betrayed. He realized now that I hadn't cut him off to hurt him. I had cut him off to save him. I had stripped away the illusion so he could finally see the reality. And the reality was that he was nothing. He sat there for hours. The moon rose outside, casting a pale, ghostly light through the high windows. It offered just enough illumination to see the outlines of the room. Julian tried to stand up. His legs were stiff. He knocked over a stack of old mail that Vanessa had left on the counter. Papers slid across the floor. He sighed and bent down to pick them up. Junk mail, bills, flyers. But as he swept his hand across the floor, his fingers brushed against something stiff. It wasn't an envelope. It was a photograph. It must have fallen out of one of the boxes Vanessa was rummaging through earlier. She must have discarded it as trash. Julian picked it up. He held it into the sliver of moonlight. It was an old Polaroid. The colors were faded, turning slightly orange with age. It was a picture of me and him. He was 5 years old. He was wearing a grease-stained t-shirt and holding a wrench that was almost as big as his arm. I was kneeling beside him, my arm around his shoulder. We were both smiling. We were both covered in dirt. We were in front of my first garage, the one that smelled of sweat and dreams. Julian stared at the photo. He looked at the smile on his 5-year-old face. It was a genuine smile. It was the smile of a boy who was proud to be helping his dad. It was the smile of a boy who didn't care about Armani suits or Dubai penthouses. He looked at my face in the photo. I looked tired, but I looked happy. I looked at him like he was the only thing in the world that mattered. Julian ran his thumb over my face in the picture. "I'm sorry," he whispered. His voice cracked. "I'm so sorry, Dad." He clutched the photo to his chest. It was the only thing of value remaining in the entire estate. The furniture was leased. The car was leased. The wife was a fraud. But this photo was real. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't stay here. This house was a tomb. He needed to find the man in the picture. He needed to find the father who had held him when he was small. He stood up. He put the photo in his pocket, right next to his heart. He didn't pack a bag. He didn't have anything to pack. He walked to the front door and opened it. The night air was cold, but it felt cleaner than the air inside. Julian Thorne walked out of the mansion. He began walking down the long driveway, leaving the gates open behind him. He didn't know where he was going to sleep that night. He didn't know how he was going to eat. But for the first time in his life, he was walking toward something real. He was walking toward redemption. And the first step of that journey was the long, hard road to the bus station. The leather seats of a Mercedes S-Class are designed for comfort during a commute, not for sleeping 3 nights in a row in a Walmart parking lot. I learned this the hard way. My back was a knot of pain. My suit, the last Italian wool suit I owned, was wrinkled and smelled of sweat. I woke up to the sound of a flashlight tapping against the window. It was a security guard. He didn't care that I used to be a CEO. He didn't care that my last name was Thorne. He just saw a vagrant sleeping in a car. "Move it along," he said. "You can't park here." I drove away. I had nowhere to go. I had $7 in my pocket. My stomach was making sounds I had never heard before. It was the sound of true hunger, not the hunger you feel when dinner is late, the hunger you feel when your body starts eating itself. I spent the morning trying to find a job. I walked into 3 different corporate offices. I asked to see the hiring managers. I handed them a resume that listed my experience as CEO of Thorn Heavy Industries. They looked at me. They looked at the wrinkles in my shirt. They looked at the unshaven stubble on my face. One manager actually laughed. "You are Julian Thorn?" he asked. "The guy who is being investigated by the IRS? The guy whose wife embezzled $500,000? "I am innocent of that," I said. "I just need a job. I can manage sales. I can manage teams." "We don't hire liabilities," the manager said. "Please leave before I call security." I walked out. The shame burned hotter than the Texas sun. I sat on a bench and ate a $1 menu cheeseburger. It was the best meal I had ever tasted. I was halfway through it when a tow truck pulled up to the curb where I had parked my car. I dropped the burger and ran. "Hey!" I shouted. "That is my car." The driver was a big man with tattoos on his neck. He looked at his clipboard. "Bank order," he said. "Repossession. You are 3 months behind on payments, Mr. Thorn." "Please," I begged. I grabbed the door handle. "It is my house. It is the only place I have to sleep." The driver pushed me back. He didn't use excessive force. He just used enough to let me know I was weak. "It's just a car, buddy," he said. "Get your stuff out. You have 2 minutes." I scrambled into the back seat. I grabbed my plastic bag of clothes. I grabbed the photograph of me and my dad. I grabbed my toothbrush. That was it. That was the sum total of my life. I stood on the sidewalk and watched the truck drag my Mercedes away. I watched my shelter disappear into traffic. I was 38 years old. I was homeless, and I was completely alone. I walked for hours. I walked until the blisters on my feet burst and bled into my socks. I walked until I found myself in a part of town I usually only saw from the highway. It was industrial. It was dirty. There were no glass offices here. There were warehouses and loading docks. I saw a sign in the window of a scrap metal yard. "Help wanted. Strippers needed. Cash daily." I walked in. The manager was a guy younger than me, wearing a hard hat and protective glasses. He looked at my suit. He looked at my desperate eyes. "You ever stripped copper wire before?" he asked. "I owned a manufacturing plant," I said. The manager snorted. "I didn't ask if you owned it. I asked if you stripped it. Can you use a wire cutter? Can you stand on your feet for 10 hours for $12 an hour?" "Yes," I whispered. "Grab a pair of gloves," he said. "You start now." That first day wasn't just hard. It was a revelation of pain. I was assigned to the sorting pile. My job was to pull insulation off heavy-gauge copper wire recycled from demolished buildings. The rubber was tough. It fought me. The wire cutter dug into my palm. My arms, unused to physical labor, started to tremble after 20 minutes. My shoulders felt like they were on fire. "Faster, new guy," the manager yelled from the office. "Copper prices are dropping. Move it." I pulled harder. I sliced my knuckle against a sharp edge of exposed metal. Skin peeled away. Blood mixed with the grime. I hissed in pain, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I needed the money. I needed to eat. By the end of the shift, I could barely stand. My hands were raw, red, swollen, and shaking. I looked at them under the harsh fluorescent lights of the break room. They were ugly. They were battered. And for the first time in my life, they looked familiar. They looked like my father's hands. I remembered how I used to look at his hands with disgust when I was a teenager. I used to tell him to use lotion. I used to tell him to wear gloves. I thought his rough hands were a sign of low status. I thought they were a sign of being trapped. Now, staring at my own bleeding knuckles, I realized the truth. Those hands weren't trapped. Those hands were free. Those hands built things. Those hands fixed things. Those hands carried the weight of a family so that my hands could be soft. I sat on a milk crate behind the scrapyard and cried. I didn't cry because I was in pain. I cried because I finally understood the sacrifice. I had spent my whole life trying to run away from being a mechanic's son, only to find my salvation in a pile of scrap metal. I worked there for 3 weeks. I slept in a 24-hour laundromat down the street. I ate peanut butter sandwiches. I didn't buy alcohol. I didn't buy cigarettes. I saved every single penny. The other workers, mostly immigrants and ex-cons, started to talk to me. They didn't care about my past. They cared that I showed up on time. They cared that I didn't complain. One of them, a guy named Jose, shared his lunch with me when he saw I was only eating crackers. "You work hard," Jose said. "You have good hands." That compliment meant more to me than any award I had ever received from the Chamber of Commerce. Every night before I fell asleep in the plastic chair at the laundromat, I took out the picture of me and my dad. I looked at it. I talked to it. "I am coming, Dad," I whispered. "I am learning." By the end of the month, I had $180. It was enough for a bus ticket to Detroit and a little left over for food. I quit the scrapyard on a Friday. The manager actually looked disappointed. "You are a good worker, Jules," he said. He called me Jules. Nobody had ever called me that. I liked it. It sounded like a regular guy. "If you need a job when you get back, you have a spot here." "Thank you," I said. I shook his hand. My grip was firm. My palm was rough. It felt good. I walked to the Greyhound station. The bus ride was 24 hours. I sat in the back near the bathroom. It smelled terrible. The seat was cramped. A baby was crying 3 rows up, but I didn't mind. I watched the country roll by through the window. I watched the flat plains of Texas turn into the gray skies of the Midwest. I watched the sun set and rise. I thought about what I was going to say. I wasn't going to ask for money. I didn't want the company back. I didn't want the house. I just wanted him to know that I knew. I wanted him to know that I finally understood what $1 cost. It cost sweat. It cost blood. It cost your back and your knees. The bus pulled into Detroit in the middle of a snowstorm. I stepped off into the cold. It was brutal. The wind cut through my thin jacket like a knife. I didn't have a coat. I wrapped my arms around myself and started walking. I knew the address. It was burned into my memory from the court documents. Miller & Sons Repair, East Side. I walked for an hour. The snow was getting deeper. My shoes, the cheap sneakers I had bought at a thrift store, were soaked. My toes were numb. I was shivering so violently my teeth chattered. But I kept walking. I had to reach him. I turned the corner and saw it. It was a small brick building with a faded sign. There was a light on inside, a warm yellow light that spilled out onto the snow. I walked up to the large bay door. I could see shadows moving inside. I heard the sound of a pneumatic drill. It was the sound of home. I stood there shivering, terrified. What if he turned me away? What if he hated me? What if it was too late? I raised my hand to knock on the metal door. My knuckles were scarred and healing. I looked at them one last time. I wasn't the CEO anymore. I wasn't the prodigy. I was just a man who had lost his way and found it in the dirt. I took a deep breath of the freezing air. I knocked 3 times. The sound rang out against the steel, echoing into the night. Then the noise inside stopped. Footsteps approached the door. The latch clicked. The heavy door began to roll up. The metal door rolled up slowly, grinding against the rusted tracks with a sound that echoed through the quiet shop. The wind from outside rushed in immediately. It was a brutal Detroit wind, carrying snowflakes that melted the instant they hit the warm concrete floor. I didn't turn around immediately. I was tightening a bolt on a transmission casing. I wanted to finish the turn. I wanted to set the torque just right. In my world, precision mattered more than drama. When I finally turned the wrench, still heavy in my hand, I saw him. He was standing in the threshold, framed by the swirling snow and the darkness of the alley. If I hadn't known his eyes, I wouldn't have recognized him. The man standing there wasn't the CEO of Thorn Heavy Industries. He wasn't the arrogance that had strutted through my boardroom in a Savile Row suit. He was a ghost. He was wearing a thin windbreaker that looked like it had been pulled from a donation bin. His shoes were canvas sneakers, soaked through and stained with road salt. His face was gaunt, the cheekbones sharp against skin that had turned a sickly shade of gray from the cold. He was shivering. It was a violent, uncontrollable shaking that rattled his entire frame. He looked like a stray dog that had been kicked one too many times and had finally stopped barking. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run to him. I wanted to grab a blanket. I wanted to pull him into the warmth of the office and pour hot coffee down his throat. I wanted to be his father. But I stayed where I was. I gripped the wrench tighter until my knuckles turned white. If I rushed to him now, if I saved him with softness, everything I had done for the last 2 months would be wasted. He didn't need a rescue. He needed a resurrection, and resurrections are painful. I leaned back against the workbench, crossing my arms over my chest. I let the silence stretch out between us. I let the wind howl. I let him feel the weight of the distance he had traveled. "You are letting the heat out," I said. My voice was flat. It was the voice I used for customers who tried to haggle over the price of a brake job. Julian flinched. He looked at me, his eyes red and rimmed with exhaustion. He stepped inside and pushed the button to close the door. The metal rattled down, sealing us in. The silence that followed was even louder than the wind. He took a step forward. He didn't walk with the confident stride of a boss. He walked with a limp. "Hello, Dad," he whispered. His voice was cracked, dry as sandpaper. I looked him up and down. I didn't offer him a chair. "You look terrible," I said. "I know," he said. He tried to smile, but his lips were too frozen to cooperate. I walked from the bus station. "Why are you here, Julian?" I asked. I didn't ask how he got here. I didn't ask where his wife was. I went straight to the wound. Julian reached into his pocket. His hand was trembling so bad he almost dropped what he was holding. He pulled out a piece of paper. It was wrinkled and water-damaged. It was the photograph. The picture of us in front of my first garage, me and him, the mechanic and his boy. He walked over and placed it on the workbench right next to a greasy rag. "I found this," he said. It was on the floor of the kitchen. Vanessa threw it away. I looked at the photo. I remembered that day. I remembered the smell of the summer rain. "And I realized I didn't have anything else," Julian said. "The bank took the house, they took the cars, Vanessa took the jewelry and left. I have $7 in my pocket. I have no job. I have no title. I have nothing." He looked up at me. Tears began to spill over his lashes, carving tracks through the dirt on his face. "I am sorry, Dad," he choked out. "I am so sorry. You were right. I was wasting your money. But worse than that, I was wasting your time. I was trying to be a big man by standing on your shoulders, and when you stepped away, I fell. I fell hard. I didn't move. I needed to know if this was real. I needed to know if this was just another sales pitch from a desperate man." "Is that why you are here?" I asked. "Do you want money? Do you want me to write a check so you can go back to Houston and pretend none of this happened?" "No," Julian said. The word exploded out of him. "No, I don't want your money. I don't want the company. I don't want any of it." "Then what do you want?" I asked. Julian looked at his hands. They were raw, covered in healing scabs from the scrapyard. He held them out to me. "I want to work," he said. "I want to earn it. I want to know what it feels like to sleep at night because I am tired, not because I am drunk. I want to learn how to fix things, not just cars. I want to fix myself." I looked at his hands. I saw the scars. I saw the calluses forming. Those weren't the hands of a CEO, those were the hands of a beginner. I picked up the rag and wiped a smudge of oil from the workbench. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 6 in the evening. "We open at 7 tomorrow morning," I said. Julian looked at me, confusion clouding his eyes. "What?" he asked. I turned and walked to a metal locker in the corner of the shop. I yanked it open. Inside was a spare uniform. It was gray, stiff with starch, and had a patch on the chest that said, "Miller Repair." I pulled it out and threw it at him. He caught it against his chest. "The pay is $15 an hour," I said. "You start at the bottom. You sweep the floors. You clean the bathrooms. You organize the tools. You do not touch a machine until I say you are ready. You do not give orders to anyone. You listen. And if you are late, even by 1 minute, you are fired. Do we have a deal?" Julian looked at the uniform. He clutched it like it was a lifeline. "Yes," he breathed. "Yes, we have a deal." "There is a cot in the back office," I said, pointing to a door near the bathroom. "There is a microwave and a fridge with sandwiches. Eat, sleep, be ready at 7. I turned back to the transmission. I picked up my wrench. I didn't hug him. I didn't tell him I loved him. I gave him something better. I gave him a chance. "Thank you," Julian whispered. I didn't answer. I heard him walk to the back office. I heard the door close. Only then did I let out the breath I had been holding. My hands were shaking. It took everything I had not to break down. My boy had come home, but he had come home broken. Now, the real work began. I had to put him back together, piece by piece. The next morning, the alarm buzzed at 6:30. I was already up, brewing a pot of strong black coffee. I unlocked the front door and flipped the sign to "Open." At 6:55, the door to the back office opened. Julian walked out. He was wearing the gray uniform. It was a little loose in the shoulders, but he had buttoned it all the way to the top. He had shaved with a disposable razor I kept in the bathroom. His face was clean, though his eyes were still shadowed with fatigue. He had tried to comb his hair with his fingers. He looked nervous. He looked like a kid on his first day of school. "Grab a broom," I said, not looking up from the invoice I was writing. "Bay 1 and 2 need to be swept. Then take out the trash from the bins out front." "Yes, sir," he said. He didn't call me Dad. He called me Sir. Good. He understood the dynamic. He grabbed the push broom and started in Bay 1. I watched him from the corner of my eye. At first, he was awkward. He held the broom like a golf club. He pushed the dirt around without really gathering it. "Put your back into it," I barked. "Use your shoulders. You are not painting a picture. You are moving dirt." He adjusted his grip. He pushed harder. Dust motes danced in the morning light. By 10 o'clock, the shop was busy. Marcus and the other boys arrived after school. They looked at Julian with suspicion. They saw a man who looked like he belonged in a bank wearing a uniform that belonged in a pit. "Who is the new guy?" Marcus asked me, loud enough for Julian to hear. "That is the new apprentice," I said. "His name is Jules. Show him how to degrease the parts washer." Julian froze for a second when he heard the name Jules. It was the name the scrapyard manager had used. It was his new identity. He nodded at Marcus. "Hey," Julian said. Marcus looked him over. "You ever degrease a pan before?" Marcus asked. "I have stripped wire," Julian said. Marcus shrugged. "Come on then, don't get the solvent in your eyes. It burns." I watched as my son followed a 17-year-old kid to the back of the shop. I watched as he rolled up his sleeves. I watched as he plunged his hands into the tank of black, foul-smelling solvent. He scrubbed. He scrubbed for hours. Sweat dripped down his forehead. He wiped it away with his forearm, leaving a streak of black grease across his cheek. He didn't stop. He didn't check his phone. He didn't ask for a break. At noon, a customer came in. It was Mrs. Kowalski again. She needed an oil change on her delivery van. She saw Julian hauling a heavy bag of oil dry across the floor. He was grunting with the effort. He dropped the bag near a spill and ripped it open, spreading the clay dust over the oil. "Is that a new hire?" Mrs. Kowalski asked me. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "He looks a little old to be a rookie," she observed. "He is starting over," I said. She nodded. "Well, he looks like a hard worker. He hasn't stopped moving since I got here." I looked at Julian. He was on his knees now, sweeping up the oil dry. His uniform was stained. His hair was messy. He looked exhausted. His fingernails were black. He looked nothing like the polished, shiny man who had tried to put me in a nursing home. He looked real. He stood up, stretching his back. He caught me looking at him. He didn't look away. He didn't look ashamed. He just nodded, a small, tired acknowledgement of the work being done. Then he bent down and kept sweeping. I turned back to Mrs. Kowalski so she wouldn't see my face. I felt a tightening in my throat. I felt the corners of my mouth twitching upward. For the first time in 10 years, for the first time since he had graduated business school and lost his way, I looked at my son, and I didn't feel disappointment. I felt pride. He was covered in dirt. He was making minimum wage. He was tired, but he was there. He was showing up. I smiled. It was a small, secret smile that I kept to myself. "I will have him check your tire pressure, Mrs. Kowalski," I said. "He needs the practice." "Jules," I called out. Julian stood up immediately. "Yes, sir." "Check the pressure on the van, and don't forget the spare under the chassis." "On it," he said. He grabbed the pressure gauge and jogged over to the van. He moved with purpose. He moved like a man who had a job to do. I watched him kneel by the tire. I watched him focus. And as the sound of the air compressor filled the shop, drowning out the noise of the city outside, I knew that we were going to be okay. It would take time. It would take sweat. But the foundation was pouring. And this time, we were building it with concrete, not with lies. Winter turned into spring in Detroit. But inside the garage, the seasons were measured by the type of work we did. In the winter, it was snow blowers and frozen batteries. As the weather warmed, it became lawn mowers and overheating radiators. For 3 months, Julian didn't miss a single sunrise. The alarm in the back office would buzz at 5 a.m., and by 5:15 I could hear the sound of the coffee grinder. He didn't complain about the cot. He didn't complain about the drafty windows. He simply woke up and went to war with the dirt. The first month was brutal. I watched him lose 15 pounds. The soft layer of fat he had accumulated from years of business lunches and sedentary board meetings melted away, replaced by lean, hard muscle. His hands, once manicured and soft, became stained with permanent black lines of grease. His knuckles were constantly scabbed. He stopped trying to scrub them clean every night. He wore the grease like a badge of honor. He learned that an impact wrench is not a toy. He learned that you do not tighten a spark plug until it screams. He learned to listen to an engine the way a doctor listens to a heartbeat. I remember the day he successfully rebuilt his first carburetor. It was a messy job involving tiny springs and rusted bolts that refused to turn. He spent 4 hours on it. He swore, he sweated, he bled. But when he finished and the engine idled smoothly, he looked up at me with a grin that I hadn't seen since he was 10 years old. It wasn't the smile of a man who just closed $1 million deal. It was the smile of a man who had created something that worked. The other mechanics noticed the change too. Marcus, the young kid who had been so skeptical, started inviting Julian to eat lunch with them on the loading dock. They didn't talk about stock prices or luxury vacations. They talked about fuel injection systems and the Detroit Lions. They called him Jules. To them, he wasn't a fallen CEO. He was just the guy who was really good at organizing the inventory and who wasn't afraid to crawl under a leaking oil pan. One afternoon in April, I watched Julian help an elderly man change a flat tire in the rain. The man tried to tip him $10. Julian pushed the money back. "Keep it," he said. "Buy your grandkids some ice cream." I stood in the doorway and felt a lump in my throat. My son had finally learned the difference between net worth and self-worth. He was poor in his bank account, but for the first time in his life, he was rich in character. But the past has a way of knocking on the door just when you think you have escaped it. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The shop was quiet. I was in the office ordering parts when I heard the front door open. The bell chimed, but it was followed by the sharp, distinct click of high heels on the concrete floor. That sound didn't belong here. It belonged in boardrooms and ballrooms. I looked out the window. A woman was standing in the center of the bay. She was wearing a beige trench coat that cost more than my entire tool chest. Her hair was perfectly styled. She was looking around the shop with a mixture of curiosity and revulsion. It was Vanessa. She had found us. I stepped out of the office, but Julian was already there. He was under the hood of a Ford truck. He wiped his hands on a rag and turned around. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look happy. He looked indifferent. "Hello, Vanessa," he said. His voice was calm. It was the voice of a man who had nothing left to lose. Vanessa looked him up and down. She stared at his gray uniform, the grease on his face, the name patch that said Miller Repair. She let out a small, breathless laugh. "My God," she said. "It is true. You really are a grease monkey. I thought the rumors were exaggerating." "What do you want?" Julian asked. He didn't step closer to her. He stayed by the truck, using it as a shield. "I came to save you," Vanessa said. She took a step forward, avoiding a puddle of oil. "Julian, this is ridiculous. Look at you. You are living like a rat. You are a thorn. You belong in a suit, not in a jumpsuit." "I am exactly where I belong," Julian said. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Stop the drama," she said. "Listen to me. I heard things. I have friends in banking. They say your father didn't lose the money. They say he moved it. They say he is sitting on a fortune in offshore accounts and that he bought this dump just to punish you." She walked closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "If he has the money, Julian, we can get it back. I talked to a new lawyer. If we can prove he is mentally unstable, if we can prove he is forcing you to live in squalor, we can contest the trust. We can get it all back. The house, the cars, everything. We can be us again." She reached out to touch his arm. Her hand was manicured. Her nails painted a perfect shade of pink. Julian looked at her hand. He looked at her face. He saw the greed swimming in her eyes. He saw the emptiness of her soul. He realized that she didn't see him. She saw a key. She saw a way to unlock a vault. He took a step back. Her hand fell to her side. "There is no us, Vanessa," Julian said, "and there is no money for you." "Don't be stupid," she hissed. "You are scrubbing floors for minimum wage. I am offering you a way out." "I am not stuck," Julian said firmly. "I am free. For the first time in my life, I am free of you. I am free of the lies. I am free of the debt. And I am free of the need to impress people who do not care if I live or die." Vanessa's face hardened. The mask of concern slipped, revealing the predator underneath. "You are pathetic," she spat. "You are going to rot in this garage, and for what? To prove a point to a senile old man?" "I am doing it to prove a point to myself," Julian said. "Now get out. You are blocking the bay. We have paying customers waiting." Vanessa stared at him. She looked for the weak man she used to manipulate. She looked for the husband who would do anything for her approval. He was gone. In his place stood a mechanic who knew the value of hard work and the cost of a bad investment. And Vanessa was a very bad investment. She spun on her heel and marched out. She didn't look back. The door slammed shut behind her, cutting off the scent of expensive perfume and leaving only the honest smell of gasoline and rain. Julian stood there for a moment. He took a deep breath. Then he turned back to the truck. He picked up his wrench and went back to work. He didn't watch her leave. That Friday, Julian received his third paycheck. It wasn't much. After taxes, it was barely enough to cover food and basic necessities, but he held the envelope like it was gold. "Dad," he said, walking into the office as I was closing up. "Yes," I said. "Put your coat on," he said. "I am taking you to dinner." I looked up. "I have food in the fridge," I said. "I made a stew." "No," Julian said. "Not tonight. Tonight we are going out, and I am paying." We walked to a diner 3 blocks down. It was a noisy, crowded joint with red checkered tablecloths and the smell of fried onions in the air. We ordered meatloaf and 2 colas. We sat in a booth near the window. For an hour, we didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about the lawsuit or the company. We talked about the shop. Julian asked me about the difference between AC and DC welding. He asked me about the history of the diesel engine. He told me a joke Marcus had told him. He laughed. It was a real laugh. It reached his eyes. When the check came, I instinctively reached for my wallet. Julian put his hand over mine. His hand was rough. It was warm. It was strong. "No," he said firmly. "I got this." He pulled out a wad of small bills, 1s, 5s, and 10s. The money was crumpled and stained with grease. He counted it out carefully on the table. He added a 20% tip. "I earned this," he said softly. I looked at the money. It was the most beautiful pile of cash I had ever seen. "I know you did, son," I said. I looked at him. I felt a surge of emotion so strong it almost knocked the wind out of me. My chest felt tight. My heart fluttered. "I am proud of you," I said. The words came out breathless. Julian smiled. "Thanks, Dad. That means—" His voice faded out. The room started to spin. The red and white tablecloth blurred into a single shade of pink. The noise of the restaurant became a distant hum. A sharp, crushing pain exploded in the center of my chest. It felt like a hydraulic press was closing around my heart. "Dad?" Julian said. His voice sounded far away. "Dad, are you okay?" I tried to speak. I tried to say I was fine, but my tongue felt heavy. My left arm went numb. The fork I was holding clattered to the floor. "Dad!" I saw Julian jump up. I saw the fear in his eyes. The room tilted sideways. The last thing I felt was Julian's strong, rough hands grabbing my shoulders, holding me up as the darkness swallowed me whole. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the first thing I heard. It was a rhythmic, artificial sound that cut through the fog in my brain. I tried to open my eyes, but my eyelids felt like they were made of lead. The air smelled of antiseptic and floor wax, a smell that was sharp and impersonal. I was alive. That was the first realization. The second realization was the weight on my hand. Someone was holding it. I forced my eyes open. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room blinded me for a second. As my vision cleared, I saw him. Julian was sitting in a plastic chair next to my bed. He was still wearing his gray mechanic uniform. It was stained with ketchup from our dinner and oil from the day's work. He hadn't gone home. He hadn't changed. He was leaning forward, his forehead resting on the mattress near my arm, his hand gripping mine so tight I could feel his pulse. He was praying. I hadn't heard my son pray since he was a child, since the nights he used to be afraid of thunderstorms. He was whispering the words, his voice thick with tears. "Please God, don't take him. Take the money, take the business, take everything I have ever owned. Just don't take him. I am not ready. I still have so much to learn. I am just a grease monkey. I need my dad." I squeezed his hand. It was a weak squeeze, but it was enough. Julian's head snapped up. His eyes were red and swollen. His face was pale beneath the layer of shop grime. When he saw my eyes were open, he let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Dad," he choked out, "you are awake. You scared me. You scared me to death." I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in my chest pushed me back down. A nurse walked in, checked the monitors, and gave me a stern look. "Stay down, Mr. Thorne," she said. "It was a minor myocardial infarction, a warning shot. You need rest." Julian looked at the nurse, then back at me. He looked terrified. "I am sorry, Dad," he said. "It was the stress. It was me. I did this to you. I put you through hell for years. Stop, I whispered. My voice was raspy. No, I won't stop, Julian said. He stood up and started pacing the small room, his hands running through his hair. I was toxic. I was greedy. I was so blind. I thought I was a king because I wore a suit, but I was nothing. And now I almost killed the only person who actually gives a damn about me. He stopped at the foot of the bed and looked at me. I am done, Dad. I am done with Houston. I am done with the ambition. As soon as you are better, I am going to work double shifts at the garage. I am going to pay for the best doctors. I don't care if I have to scrub tires for the rest of my life. I just want you to be around. I watched him. I saw the sincerity in his eyes. It wasn't the panic of a man losing his inheritance. It was the panic of a son losing his father. The test was over. He had passed. Sit down, Julian, I said. He sat. He took my hand again. I need you to listen to me, I said. I need you to listen very carefully. I am listening, he said. I didn't sell the debt, I said. Julian looked confused. He frowned. What do you mean? He asked. The bank foreclosed. The trucks came. They took the machines. I know, I said. I ordered the trucks. Julian went still. He stared at me. You ordered them, he whispered. I took a deep breath. It hurt, but I needed to get the words out. When I drained the accounts, I didn't burn the money, Julian. I moved it. I moved it to a shell company called Ironclad Holdings. I used that money to buy the distressed debt of Thorn Industries from the bank. I bought the note for 60 cents on the dollar because the bank thought the business was collapsing. Julian blinked. He was trying to process the information. So, he said slowly, the bank doesn't own the company? No, I said. Ironclad Holdings owns the company, and I own Ironclad Holdings. I watched the realization wash over him. The building, Julian said. The land, the showroom, the machines. It is all still ours, I said. It is empty, it is dusty, but it is ours. I didn't destroy the empire, son. I put it in a coma. I had to stop the bleeding. I had to get the cancer out. And the cancer wasn't the market. It wasn't the inventory. It was you. Or rather, the version of you that Vanessa created. Julian dropped his head into his hands. He was trembling. You saved it, he whispered. You saved it all. I reached out and touched his arm. I didn't save it for me, I said. I am 70 years old. I belong in that garage in Detroit fixing carburetors. I saved it for the man you are right now, the man who is willing to work for $15 an hour, the man who pays for his father's meatloaf with crumpled bills. Julian looked up. Tears were streaming down his face again. I don't deserve it, he said. I can't go back there, Dad. I can't put that suit back on. I am not that guy anymore. Good, I said, because that guy is fired. I am not hiring the CEO back. I am hiring the mechanic. I pointed to the side table where my personal phone was sitting. Call Elena, I said. Tell her to prepare the reinstatement papers, but tell her the terms have changed. What terms? Julian asked. I am giving you the keys back, I said. You are going to reopen Thorn Industries. You are going to rehire Sarah. You are going to rehire Simon. You are going to call every employee who walked out that day. Julian nodded, wiping his face with his sleeve. Okay, he said. I can do that. I will run it right this time. I will watch every penny. There is a condition, I interrupted. Anything, Julian said. You are not the sole owner, I said, and neither am I. I paused to let the words sink in. We are converting the company into an employee stock ownership plan, I explained. You will own 40%. I will retain 10%. The other 50% will be owned by the employees, the welders, the sales staff, the receptionists. They are not just workers anymore. They are partners. If the company eats, they eat. If the company starves, they starve. Julian stared at me, his mouth opened slightly. A cooperative, he said. Exactly, I said. You wanted to be a leader. A real leader doesn't stand on top of his people, he stands with them. You are going to run that company, but you are going to answer to the people who turn the wrenches. You are going to show them the respect I showed you in the garage. Do you think you can handle that? Julian looked at his hands. The grease was still there, embedded deep in the skin. He made a fist. It was a strong fist. 50% for them, he repeated. He looked at me. That is millions of dollars in equity. Dad, you are giving away millions. I am investing millions, I corrected him. I am investing in loyalty. I am investing in the kind of people who don't leave when the credit card gets declined. I looked him dead in the eye. Can you do it, Julian? Can you be the boss who serves, not the boss who takes? Julian stood up. He looked out the hospital window at the Detroit skyline. The sun was rising, painting the buildings in gold light. He turned back to me. He stood taller than I had seen him in years. I can, he said. I will make it the best company in the state. Not the most expensive, the best. He walked over to the bed. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. It was the first time he had done that since he was a boy. Thank you, Dad, he whispered. Thank you for breaking me. I smiled. The pain in my chest felt a little lighter. I didn't break you, son, I said. I just stripped the paint so we could see the steel underneath. Julian laughed. It was a wet, shaky sound. He grabbed my phone and dialed Elena. Elena, he said into the phone. It is Julian. Yes, he is okay. We are both okay. Get the paperwork ready. We are going home. And Elena, draft a profit-sharing agreement. Yes, you heard me right. We are changing the business model. We are going to share the wealth. I closed my eyes and listened to my son taking charge. But this time, the arrogance was gone. His voice was humble. His questions were smart. He was asking for advice, not demanding obedience. I drifted back to sleep. But this time, the darkness wasn't scary. It was peaceful. I had finished my job. My legacy wasn't the money in the bank. My legacy was the man standing by my bedside wearing a dirty uniform, planning a future where everyone got a seat at the table. When I woke up again hours later, the room was quiet. Julian was asleep in the chair, his head tilted back, his mouth slightly open. He looked exhausted. He looked peaceful. I reached over and picked up the water pitcher. The clink of the plastic woke him instantly. He sat up, alert. "Water?" he asked. I nodded. He poured me a glass and held the straw to my lips. I drank. The cool water felt like life returning to my body. "One more thing," I said, pushing the glass away. "What is it, Dad?" Julian asked. "The suit," I said. "What about it?" he asked. "Burn it," I said. "When you go back to Houston, don't wear Italian wool. Wear work boots, wear a polo shirt, let them see your hands." Julian looked at his hands. He flexed his fingers. "I will," he promised. "I am not hiding these anymore." He sat back down. He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I love you, Dad," he said. I looked at him. I saw the gray hairs starting to show at his temples. I saw the lines of worry on his forehead. He was a man now, a real man. "I love you too, son," I said. And in that sterile hospital room, amidst the beeping machines and the smell of antiseptic, the war between father and son finally ended. There was no treaty signed. There was no surrender. There was only the quiet, profound victory of love over greed. We had lost a fortune to find a family, and it was the best trade I had ever made. The calendar on the wall of the break room in Houston read June. It had been exactly 365 days since I walked out of the hospital and handed the keys back to my son. In the world of business, a year is a quarter. In the world of a father, a year is a lifetime. If you walked into Thorn-Heavy Industries today, you wouldn't recognize it. The marble floors are still there, and the glass walls still gleam in the sun. But the temperature of the room has changed. It used to feel like a refrigerator. cold and sterile, a place where money was worshipped and people were tolerated. Now, it feels like a living room. Julian was standing near the service desk. He wasn't wearing a three-piece Italian suit. He was wearing a navy blue polo shirt with the company logo embroidered on the chest. He was wearing work boots, scuffed at the toes, and most importantly, he was smiling. A young sales associate named David was looking panicked. He had just dropped a tray of coffee on the pristine floor, right in front of a customer. In the old days, Julian would have fired him on the spot. He would have screamed about incompetence and the cost of the cleaning crew. I watched through the security feed on my tablet as Julian walked over. He didn't yell. He grabbed a roll of paper towels. He knelt down on the floor next to David. "It is just coffee, David," I heard Julian say through the audio feed. "Coffee cleans up. Bad attitudes don't. Are you burned?" "No, sir," David stammered. "I am so sorry, Mr. Thorne." Julian laughed. It was a warm, easy sound. "Stop apologizing. Help me wipe this up and then go get the customer a fresh cup on the house." The customer, a woman who had looked annoyed a moment ago, softened. She saw the owner of the company on his knees wiping up a mess. She saw humility. She ended up ordering 3 excavators that afternoon, not because of the price, but because she trusted the place. Later that afternoon, Julian held a town hall meeting in the service bay. Every employee was there, the welders, the receptionists, the detailers. Julian stood on a crate so they could see him. He held up a piece of paper. "This is the quarterly report," he announced. The room went silent. In the past, this was the moment where he would announce budget cuts or demand higher quotas. "We exceeded our sales target by 15%, Julian said. "But we cut our overhead by 20% because you guys caught waste before it happened. You fixed parts instead of replacing them. You turned off lights. You treated this place like you owned it." He paused and looked around the room. "And that is because you do own it," he said. He started handing out envelopes. They were profit-sharing checks. I saw Sarah open hers. She gasped and covered her mouth. It wasn't a bonus. It was a life-changing amount of money. "This is not a gift," Julian told them. "This is your equity. Thank you for being my partners." I watched my son shake hands with the grease-stained mechanics. I watched him listen to their ideas. He was no longer the boy who stood on my shoulders to look tall. He was the man who built a foundation so everyone else could stand tall with him. He had burned the suit just like I asked, and in the process, he had ignited a fire in the heart of the company that would never go out. 800 miles away, the wind off the Detroit River was warm and carried the scent of blooming lilacs. I sat in a lawn chair outside the garage in Detroit. The shop was closed for the evening, but the bay door was open, letting the golden hour light spill across the concrete. I wasn't working on a machine today. I was fixing a bicycle for the neighbor's granddaughter. She was 6 years old and had ridden over a nail. Marcus sat next to me. He wasn't a kid anymore. He was my shop manager. He ran the day-to-day operations now, handling the customers with a grace I had taught him and a patience he had learned on his own. "You got a letter, Elias," Marcus said, handing me a thick envelope. "It is from Houston." I wiped my hands on a rag and took the envelope. I knew what it was. It was the monthly report from Julian, but it wasn't just numbers. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Dad," it read. "We hired 3 more people this month. All of them are from the Ironworks apprenticeship program you started. They are good kids, hungry, just like I was in the garage. I told them the story about the scrapyard. They didn't believe me until I showed them my hands." I smiled. "I am coming up next week," the letter continued. "I want to show you the new designs for the community center we are building next to the HQ. I want to name it the Elias Thorne Center for Industry. Don't argue with me. It is already approved by the board. And by the board, I mean the mechanics. Love, Julian." I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I looked out at the street. The neighborhood was alive. Kids were playing tag. Music was drifting from an open window. I was happy. It was a quiet, deep happiness that settled in my bones. I lived in a small apartment above the shop. I drove an old truck. I didn't have a butler or a country club membership, but I had respect. I had a community, and I had a son who was finally a man I could look up to. People used to ask me why I stayed in Detroit. They asked why I didn't go back to the mansion and the luxury. They didn't understand. The mansion was a cage. This garage, with its smell of oil and its honest work, was my palace. I had found peace in the simplicity. I had found that the richest sleep comes after a day of physical labor, not a day of financial maneuvering. I finished fixing the bicycle tire. The little girl squealed with delight and rode off down the sidewalk. I watched her go. I thought about the legacy we leave behind. It isn't what we write in our wills. It is what we write in the hearts of the people we raise. I stood up and stretched my back. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. It was time to close up. It was time to rest. I have told you this story not because I want you to be angry at my son or because I want you to applaud my revenge. I told you this story because there is a lie that we are all sold. The lie is that love means giving people what they want. We think that if we love our children, we should shield them from pain. We should buy them the car. We should pay their debts. We should smooth the road so they never stumble. But that is not love. That is fear. That is the fear of them rejecting us. I loved my son enough to let him hate me. I loved him enough to break his heart so that life wouldn't break his spirit. I took away his money to give him his dignity. I took away his title to give him his name. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. There were nights in this garage when I wanted to call him, when I wanted to wire the money back just to stop his suffering. But I knew that if I did, I would be stealing his victory. And look at him now. He is not just a rich man, he is a wealthy man. He has the wealth of resilience, he has the wealth of empathy, he has the wealth of knowing that if he lost everything tomorrow, he could pick up a wrench and build it all back up again. That is the only inheritance that matters. To all the parents listening, do not be afraid to let your children walk in the rain. Do not be afraid to let them fall. It is in the getting up that they find their legs. And to the children who feel like the world owes them something, remember this. The check is not in the mail. The check is in your hands, waiting for you to work for it. My name is Elias Thorne. I am a mechanic. I am a father. And I am the man who disappeared so my son could finally be found. Thank you for listening to my story. If this touched a chord in you, if you have ever had to make a hard choice to save someone you love, tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you believe that character is worth more than currency, hit that subscribe button. We are building a community here, one honest story at a time. Until next time, keep your hands dirty and your heart clean. Goodbye. This story teaches us that the greatest gift a parent can give is not a shielded life, but the resilience to survive a hard one. I spent years thinking I was loving my son by giving him everything, but I was actually robbing him of his character. True wealth is not found in bank accounts or luxury cars. It is found in the calluses on your hands and the integrity in your heart. Sometimes you have to let the people you love hit rock bottom, because that is the only place where they can find a solid foundation to build a life that actually lasts. If this story reminded you of the value of honest work, hit that like button and tell me in the comments below. What is the most important lesson your father ever taught you? I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about justice and redemption. See you in the next video.